Chapter 2558. At this point, Guyu hesitated a little and reminded, "However, the sword tomb is not suitable for cultivators to go. If Senior goes there, you have to be careful. And this old man knows." Xiaohua nodded. "Then, this junior will take her leave." Guyu urged the flying sword again. "Wait." Xiaohua's mind moved and said urgently. Guyu frowned, but she didn't dare to flare up. She only asked, "Does Senior have any other instructions?" "This old man wants to ask you blocked Huan Hua Sec's magic weapon. Do you have other thoughts?" Xiaohua asked with a smile. This, Guyu didn't understand. Xiaohua was wearing a camouflage robe, so Guyu didn't know where he was looking. This junior really doesn't have other thoughts. Guyu shook her head. Then the Ganoderma horse? Xiaohua pointed his hand and asked, "You don't have any thoughts?" Thank you, Senior, for reminding me." Guyu smiled sweetly and innocently. Junior, indeed, didn't think so much at that time. But if Senior wants to bestow a reward, it would be impolite for this junior to refuse. "This item is also beneficial to my sword cultivation." Yes, now the Ganoderma horse was in Xiaohua's hands. Xiaohua mentioned it at this time. Of course, he has the intention to reward her. "Can the Ganoderma horse be eaten directly?" Xiaohua asked. "Or does your sword cultivation have a special secret technique?" Guyu pursed her lips and smiled. Senior's idea is wrong. This junior needs this Ganoderma horse to refine pills or make medicine. Eating it alone is not good. It's even a waste of natural resources. Oh, Xiaohua hesitated. There were many spiritual herbs in his space. Not to mention 10,000 years old, 100,000 years old, 200,000 years old. But these spiritual herbs didn't have any spiritual wisdom. He was somewhat reluctant to destroy this Ganoderma horse. Seeing Xiaohua hesitate, Guyu immediately understood and smiled apologetically. Senior only needs to bestow some juice. There's no need to take the Ganoderma horse's life. Good. Xiaohua also understood and was about to take out the Ganoderma horse, but his heart was moved again. He turned his head and asked Zhonghauren, "When you use the Ganoderma horse, is it also the same?" "All right, I'll let Senior know." Zhonghauren listened for a long time. When he heard Xiaohua suddenly ask him this question, he immediately bowed and said, "That is indeed the case." One of Junior's senior apprentice sisters, previously, due to a lucky coincidence, she obtained a Heavenman pill. Relying on this spirit pill, she reached foundation establishment in one fell swoop, and her cultivation base was extremely fast. Junior and the others obtained a pill formula that can be used to refine a different type of spirit pill. Although this spirit pill can't compare to the Heavenman pill for us. And no need to say any more. Xiaohua nodded and looked at Guyu. What Zhonghauren said. "Do you know?" "Yes, this junior understands." Guyu's eyes lit up as if she understood something from Xiaohua's words. She hurriedly nodded and said, "Although the Dao Sec's heaven-mending pill is used to mend meridians, it is also extremely beneficial to the physique of us sword cultivators. Even if this junior took the juice of the Ganoderma horse, the medicinal pill refined would still be inferior to the heaven-mending pill. If Senior has a medicinal pill similar to the heavenly mending pill, Junior can refuse the Ganoderma horse as a reward." "Ha, what a smart lass." Xiaohua laughed heartily. With a wave of his hand, he took out a jade bottle and threw it to Guyu. This old man had just thought of it, and you could already sense it. "You are indeed a dragon among sword cultivators." Many thanks, Senior." Guyu received the jade bottle and was extremely excited. She hurriedly thanked him, but when she opened the jade bottle, she frowned again. This ugly pill was a far cry from the heavenly mending pill that she knew of. However, the runes on the medicinal pill had a faint brilliance, and its essence was so restrained. It made her intuition tell her that this medicinal pill was not ordinary. "Ha, little lass, if you don't want it, then this old man will not give it to you." Xiaohua laughed heartily when he saw the situation. This old man saw your benevolent heart and also saved the Zhongling Mountain Villa's disciple. That's why I gave this item to you. Guyu was enlightened and no longer hesitated. She hurriedly kept the jade bottle and bowed. This junior thanks senior for the generous gift. This junior has obtained this medicinal pill. In the future, when my cultivation is successful, I will definitely remember today's matter and also remember this junior's oath. Good, Xiao Hua said with a smile. The heavenly Tao is in the human heart. Whatever you say, the heavenly Tao is listening. You have a kind heart, and the heavenly Tao is kind. This is the will of the heavens. You don't have to thank me. Yes, this junior understands. This junior will take her leave. Guyu said goodbye again. Right? Xiao Hua patted his forehead again. Guyu did not frown this time. She was very happy and laughed. Senior, do you have any other instructions? It turned out that when Guyu said goodbye, her figure did not move. She seemed to know that Xiao Hua would speak again. Ha 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 ha. Xiao Hua laughed again. He patted his storage bag and took out a jade bottle. Little lass and this old man are fated. This item is for you. However, do not mention it to others. What is this? Guyu took the jade bottle. It was another ugly medicinal pill. She really did not understand. Face-retaining pill. Xiao Hua knew that Guyu might not know about the auction in Sky Patrol City. He could only transmit his voice. What? This is a face-retaining pill? As calm as Guyu, when she heard that she had a face-retaining pill in her hand, she also exclaimed. She had long lost her usual calmness. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He transmitted his voice to her. Wasn't it to let her keep quiet? Even if there were only Zhong Haoren and the other 4 people around, this face-retaining pill was very likely to be related to the rejuvenation pill. Xiao Hua did not want to leave any clues behind. And this is the item. Xiao Hua said with a smile. This old man was in Tongmu City more than 10 years ago. I competed with the people and bid for this item. However, this old man has no use for it. Today, I will give it to you. Alas, youth is fleeting, brilliance is hard to stay. I hope this little lass can stay pure forever. Many, many thanks, Senior. Guyu's face was slightly red. However, the shyness in her eyes could not suppress the surprise in her eyes. If Xiao Hua and the others were not here, she was afraid that she would have swallowed it in one gulp. All right, little lass, you can go now. Xiao Hua saw that Guyu actually stopped in midair and still did not leave. He said with a smile, this old man does not have any more good things here. Yes, this junior is truly grateful to Senior. Only I do not know. Guyu summoned up her courage and said, only I do not know if Senior can bestow a name. Obviously, Guyu is truly grateful. No need. Xiao Hua opened his mouth and said, not transmitting his voice, you and I have met by chance. Moreover, there is a difference between Tao and sword. I am afraid that we will not meet again in the future. Whether or not I know your name has nothing to do with it. Guyu's face was full of disappointment. Biting her lips, Xiao Hua's unusually young face inexplicably appeared in her mind. It seemed that from the moment she saw his battle, the trajectory of her life had already changed. These words, even if it was said by Xiao Hua, it was also extremely appropriate. This junior is leaving. Guyu hesitated. She was about to urge her body to leave, as if she was expecting Xiao Hua to call her again. Be careful on the road. Xiao Hua no longer spoke to urge her to stay. Many thanks, Senior. Guyu's face showed a trace of disappointment. I forgot. Just as Guyu flew for about 10 feet, Xiao Hua's gaze swept across the ground where Zhong Haoren's flying sword was destroyed by the Huanhua sect disciple. Suddenly, his heart moved, and he hurriedly said, little girl, please wait. Yes, Senior. Do you have any other orders? Guyu cheerfully flew back. Unexpectedly, she was extremely happy. The last sentence. Xiao Hua pointed his finger at Zhong Haoren and said, this is Zhong Haoren from Zhongling Mountain Village. You two meeting today can be considered as fate. Moreover, this old man observed that Zhong Haoren also practiced flying swords. If there is any opportunity in the future, you two can learn from each other. How about it? Guyu's face showed slight astonishment. There was also a trace of disappointment. Looking left and right at the 5 people, she nodded and said, since this is Senior's order, if there is an opportunity in the future, this junior can give some guidance. Mrs. Life-Saving Grace, This Zhong will never forget it. How could Zhong Haoran not understand? He hurriedly bowed and said, however, this Zhong's cultivation is shallow and it is difficult to repay. Now I can only remember it in my heart and hope that there will be an opportunity in the future to repay. No need. Guyu flicked her sleeve and said, this senior has already repaid the favor of saving you all. If there is an opportunity in the future, you can come to the Void Heaven Sword School. This sword will definitely fulfill her promise to the senior. Immediately, Guyu looked at Xiao Hua and said, this junior will be leaving now, and Xiao Hua smiled and said, this old man has nothing else to do. Little girl, quickly go back. Sure enough, this time, Guyu flew for several hundred zhong. Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't call for her, Guyu had no choice but to urge her invisible sword to quickly fly away. Junior Zhong Haoran once again thanks Senior. After Guyu left, Zhong Haoran knew that a mere sword cultivator could obtain so many benefits from the senior. He and the others were cultivators of the Dao sect, so how could they not benefit from the senior? He immediately bowed and thanked him again. The 4 10th layer Qi refining disciples also hurriedly bowed. Strange. Xiao Hua looked at Zhong Haoran and asked, Haoran, this Xiao remembers that you didn't practice flying sword before? Why did you suddenly use a flying sword? When Zhong Haoran heard Xiao Hua address him so intimately, he was already greatly alarmed. When Xiao Hua addressed himself as this Xiao, he almost cried tears of joy. With a voice of disbelief, he called out, Xiao, Martial Uncle Xiao? Nonsense, of course it's this Xiao. As Xiao Hua spoke, he removed the mist and said with a smile, that sword cultivator was here just now. This Xiao didn't dare to be too ostentatious. Who would have thought that when Xiao Hua revealed his true face, without waiting for Zhong Haoran to speak, those 4 10th layer Qi refining disciples looked as if they were struck by lightning. Their eyes emitted a crazed expression. Plop, 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 4 times in a row, the 4 of them actually all knelt on the ground and said with their heads bowed, this lowly one, kowtows to Daoist Xiao. So much so that a slightly younger disciple was practically clenching his fist. His body was trembling as he shouted somewhat hysterically. This lowly one was able to see Daoist Zhao's true face in this lifetime. Even if this lowly one dies today, I have no regrets. Another disciple also shouted, this lowly one was just silently calling Daoist Zhao's name in my heart, and Daoist Xiao immediately flew over to save this lowly one. Daoist Xiao is indeed a supreme Daoist. Where did this all come from? Xiao Hua saw the 4 people lose their composure like this and was startled in his heart. He then bitterly smiled and looked at Zhong Haoran. Haoran, what's going on? Every single one of them kowtowed to Daoist Zhao's statue in the morning and at night, offering incense to the statue. Xiao Hua frowned and asked curiously, Fei Yunshu, you've already refined Qi. Why is your family still so poor? I'll let Daoist Xiao know. Fei Yunshu replied without hesitation. This humble one had only just reached the 3rd layer of Qi refining at that time, and could only enter the Fei family. Besides, our blood relations with the Fei family were too distant. This humble one had already spent a lot of money to enter the Fei family, and this humble one couldn't cultivate, so he couldn't help the family much. What? You were only at the 3rd layer of Qi refining at that time? Not only was Xiao Hua flabbergasted, even Zhong Haoran was shocked. It had only been a dozen years, and this Fei Yunshu had actually cultivated from the 3rd layer of Qi refining to the 10th layer of Qi refining. How could this be? This Fei Yunshu was a cultivation genius. This was all thanks to Daoist Zhao's great kindness. Fei Yunshu said anxiously, this humble one's aptitude wasn't good at that time. Even in the Fei family, I was only a 3rd-rate cultivator. However, when this humble one returned home and saw that not only was everyone in the family alive, but there were also a few of my nephews with excellent aptitudes, an idea came to my mind. When this humble one heard my family's gratitude to Daoist Xiao, This humble one knelt in front of Taoist Zhao's statue and prayed. As a result, this humble one received Taoist Zhao's guidance. Under the condition of fasting, this humble one ate the Taoist Zhao's immortal seeds. Thus, this humble one's cultivation didn't have any bottlenecks, and I cultivated all the way to the 10th layer of qi refining. There's such a thing? Xiao Hua was stunned again. Yes, this humble one didn't dare to say too much about this matter. If this humble one didn't see Taoist Xiao in person today, this humble one definitely wouldn't have revealed it. Fei Yunshu's eyes fell on Xiao Hua, ignoring Zhong Haoren and the others. Xiao Hua looked at the other three people. Their eyes were flickering with fanaticism, as if they were extremely respectful towards Xiao Hua. Thus, he asked, "What about the three of you?" This humble one's name is Zhong Pei, a distant branch of the Zhong family. A slightly pale disciple with delicate features hurriedly replied, "This humble one's family isn't as poor as junior marshal brother Fei's family. My family didn't worship Taoist Xiao before. However, this humble one was seriously injured and was stranded in the wilderness. There were some commoners there who worshiped Taoist Xiao. This humble one ate Taoist Zhao's immortal seeds, and my injuries were greatly healed. Even my cultivation had a breakthrough. Thus, this humble one asked for Taoist Zhao's statue from the commoners and hid it close to my body. Every day, I would worship it and eat a lot of rice. Thus, this humble one's cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds." As he spoke, he carefully took out a silk ribbon from his neck. Sure enough, there was a small person inside. Looking at his appearance, his phoenix eyes and sword-like eyebrows were indeed somewhat similar to Xiao Hua's. "Granny, is this young master really that godly?" Xiao Hua pinched his nose. It was very strange. He really didn't think that the rice he planted in his space could actually have such an effect. "You two are waiting for?" Xiao Hua asked again. He knew that if he didn't ask, they definitely wouldn't say anything. "This humble one is Qin Ji. I live in Jiqing, but I'm not related to the Qin family by blood." Another extremely simple and honest disciple said, "This humble one's experience is similar to that of senior brother Fei. However, the difference is that this humble one went home to visit his family and saw that his nephew was only 4 years old. He could actually understand the qi refining method that this humble one accidentally obtained. He could even easily draw qi into his body. However, when this humble one recommended this nephew to Jiqing, the martial uncle who tested his physique said that this nephew's aptitude was not good enough, and he couldn't cultivate. Thus, this humble one asked someone to let this nephew enter Zhongling Mountain Village. Finally, this humble one found the miracle of Taoist Xiao in his home. It turned out that this nephew was born after his sister used Taoist Zhao's immortal seed. This humble one tried to use the immortal seed and worship Taoist Xiao. And this humble one understands." Xiao Huan nodded and asked again, "Then what about the other nephews in your family?" This humble one has 2 nephews. Although they're very smart, they don't seem to have an immortal fate like this nephew. Qin Ji said without hiding anything. "What about you?" Xiao Hua looked at the last disciple, who was a little short and fat. This humble one's name is Zhong Zhan." The disciple's face was a little red as he whispered, "This humble one has always been bad at fasting and often takes secular things from time to time." Later, this humble one was also curious. "After taking Taoist Zhao's immortal seed, my cultivation improved greatly. Only then did I really worship Taoist Xiao. So that's how it is." Xiao Huan nodded slightly, waved his hand, and said, "This humble one's giving of good seeds is the virtue of the heavens. The heavens borrowed this humble one's hand to save the common people. You all have this opportunity and can see the way to progress. It is also the will of the heavens. This has nothing to do with this humble one. Fellow Taoists worshiping this humble one like this really makes this humble one panic." Taoist Xiao. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, Zhong Haoren was a little puzzled. However, the faces of Zhong Zhan and the others changed greatly. This humble one can't control what others think. Fei Yinshu said sincerely. This humble one's family of dozens of people worship Taoist Shao in order to survive. Not allowing this humble one to worship you is impossible. Taoist Shao. Hearing this, Zhong Haoran also knelt on the ground and kowtowed, saying, Others don't know Taoist Zhao's divine ability, but how could this humble one not know? Actually, this humble one was also silently praying in his heart. When Taoist Shao appeared just now, this humble one already had some premonition in his heart. However, to be honest with Taoist Shao, this humble one really didn't dare to believe it just now. After all, this is too miraculous. But now, it seems that this humble one and the other's piety was able to summon Taoist Shao. In the future, this humble one will also be like them, worshipping Taoist Shao in my heart. Chapter 2560. Haoran, Xiaohua was suddenly pushed to the altar by others. He felt somewhat uncomfortable and said with a bitter smile, Don't you feel that worshipping a cultivator with a similar cultivation level as you is very unnatural? Moreover, no matter how high this Zhao's cultivation level is, in the future, you'll still have the opportunity to cultivate to this Zhao's current cultivation level, or even surpass this Xiao. At that time, will others also have to worship you? Taoist Shao. Zhong Haoran said sincerely. This lowly one has cultivated to this point completely by relying on Taoist Zhao's strength. This lowly one knows that without Taoist Shao, this lowly one would still be a qi-refining cultivator and would absolutely have no chance to set foot into foundation establishment. Not only that, even if this lowly one has Taoist Zhao's cultivation level, this lowly one does not have Taoist Zhao's heart, does not have the compassion of the world, and does not have the magical ability to save thousands of people from water and fire. Therefore, this lowly one can say that in this world, only Taoist Shao can worship, even if Taoist Shao is only a foundation establishment cultivator. As for other cultivators, even if they are nascent soul cultivators, they are only our teachers, not the Taoist we should worship. Taoist Shao. Qin Ji and Fei Yinshu shouted, Please accept this lowly one's worship. Unfortunately, these four people were restrained by Xiaohua's heaven and earth sleeve. Although they could speak, they could not worship him. Hearing the words of the five people, Xiaohua's heart was also shaken. The Buddhist fire in his Buddhist heart flickered slightly, seemingly echoing. Could it be that this is really a magical ability? After Xiaohua sensed it, he was somewhat surprised. After thinking for a while, he made a decision. Damn it, if this young master continues to refuse, this young master will really be suspected of selling dog meat under a sheep's head. If this young master did not want to have a false reputation, this young master would not have mentioned his name when the people of the secular world wanted to worship him. Even when the Zhongling Mountain Villa and the heavenly demon sect scattered spirit seeds everywhere, this young master would not have mentioned his name. Now that Taoist Zhao's name has been spread out, and there really are people coming to worship this young master has to pretend to push them out? Is this interesting? Forget it. Xiaohua made a decision. He immediately waved his Taoist robe and laughed loudly. This Xiao is wrong. The human heart is the most back. The common people are the heavenly Tao. Since the heavenly Tao wants to borrow this young master's hand to save the common people, this young master, what's the harm? Thank you, spiritual master Xiao. Seeing Xiaohua agree, Zhong Haoran and the others were overjoyed. They kowtowed 9 times before standing up. Good. Xiaohua clapped his hands, took out 5 jade bottles, and handed them over to Zhong Haoran. You can't just greet me for nothing. Here, each of you will get 1 heaven-mending pill. Thank you, spiritual master. Zhong Haoran was overjoyed. He respectfully stepped forward to receive it and then distributed it to everyone. How could Fei Yinshu and the others not know what the heavenly mending pill was? Seeing that Taoist Master Shao, whom he regarded as a deity, had once again bestowed him with a spirit pill, his heart was filled with boundless gratitude. Choked with sobs, she couldn't even say the word thank you. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly when he saw Fei Yunshu and the others shed tears of gratitude. However, he immediately felt a trace of pride in his heart. Xiao Hua rarely gave things to others, but when he did give things to others, they were all extremely good things. If one were to think about it, which cultivator would be able to shed tears of gratitude like these four? This wasn't just a simple shedding tears of gratitude, but rather a level of worship towards Xiao Hua as if he were God. In the entire Dawn Rain continent, how many cultivators could do this? Xiao Hua naturally had a reason to be proud. Suddenly, Xiao Hua's heart moved again. He had an idea that he had never thought of before. Thank you, spiritual master. Fei Yunshu came to his senses and blurted out again. Yunshu, Xiao Hua said faintly. Since this is something bestowed by this spiritual master, you should have it. In the future, don't mention the word thank you. Yes, spiritual master. This little one understands. Fei Yunshu's heart trembled, and he hurriedly replied. Xiao Hua swept his gaze over the others and asked, just now you all said that the baby who ate this spiritual master's immortal seed would have excellent aptitudes, right? Yes, spiritual master knows. Qingji hurriedly said, this little one has specially inquired. Boy who ate the immortal seed was more flexible and intelligent than the babies this little one had seen before. But when it comes to aptitudes, right? Not necessarily. Just like this little one's nephew, his physique isn't suitable for cultivation, but his cultivation method is far superior to ordinary people. Maybe. At this point, Qingji was somewhat hesitant. Zhong Haoran said, spiritual master, this little one thinks that our Zhong family's method of physique testing might not be able to test the physique of the babies cultivated by spiritual master's immortal seed. Correct. That's exactly the case. Xiao Hua instantly understood. Now that the world's spiritual energy had changed, his immortal seed was able to adapt to the current world's spiritual energy after being cultivated by the space. Moreover, the babies who ate this rice had also adapted to the current world's spiritual energy. In this changed world's spiritual energy, it was more suitable for cultivation. Of course, the original method of testing babies was no longer suitable. More suitable testing methods for these babies were needed. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua recalled the time when he was in the Imperial Thunder sect. He helplessly said to Xiang Yang that when Jinlei Palace was selecting disciples, they often found that the disciples with great potential didn't have any special progress after being accepted into the sect. Some disciples who didn't perform well at that time actually advanced by leaps and bounds after being accepted into the sect. This was probably the reason. And this Xiao understands. Xiao Huan nodded and asked, like you, who ate rice are there other cultivators? This. Zhong Haoran looked at the four people and shook his head. This little one doesn't know. This little one has been fasting for a long time. If the four of them didn't mention it, this little one wouldn't have thought that they still ate rice. When this little one and the others ate rice, we did it behind their backs. We only ate it after worshipping spiritual master. Fei Yunshu said in a low voice. Us too. Zhong Zhan and the others replied in the same way. Although Xiao Hua was a bit curious about the relationship between worshipping him and eating rice, when he thought about how the people of the secular world did it, he was afraid that they would also do the same. As for why Qi refining cultivators were so devout, Xiao Hua could only attribute it to miraculous. Forget it. Xiao Hua waved his hand. In the future, when you return to Zhongling Mountain Village, you can carefully investigate it. There are many immortal seeds there. In this Zhao's opinion, I'm afraid that all the rice has been replaced by immortal seeds. When Zhong Haoran heard this, a hint of embarrassment appeared on his face. He lowered his head and said, You're right, spiritual master. With spiritual master's support and the Zhongling village arrangement, the rice in Mongolia is being replaced by good seeds in Yunqing, Zhiqing, and Fanqing. Moreover, in the secular world, these immortal seeds have been called immortal seeds. Many influential people in the secular world have gathered in Yun City in order to obtain immortal seeds from the Zhong family. Because of this, the Zhong family has benefited greatly. Zhongling Mountain Village? Zhong family? When Xiao Hua heard Zhong Haoren's words, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. It didn't seem to be the Zhongling Mountain Village or Zhong family that he often heard. Xiao Hua couldn't help but notice the embarrassment on Zhong Haoren's face. Sure enough, Zhong Haoren said in a low voice, "Spiritual Master, if you insist on investigating around Zhongling Mountain Village, I'm afraid that this little one won't be able to complete it. However, the immortal seeds around Yun City have already been popularized. Even if this little one isn't in Zhongling Mountain Village, I can still complete it." Haoren, what's going on? Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and looked at the four people beside him. The four people's excited eyes revealed a trace of unwillingness, and he couldn't help but ask, "Just now, this Xiao saw the five of you alone in the vicinity of this sword tomb. It's currently a great battle between Dao cultivators. How did you all come to such a dangerous place? Zhong Zhan and the others are only at the 10th level of Qi refinement. A sword cultivator can kill all of you with a single flying sword." Zhong Haoren gritted his teeth and said with extreme grievance, "I'll let Spiritual Master know. Actually, this little one is no longer a disciple of Zhongling Mountain Village. Earlier, what I said to that female sword cultivator was only out of consideration for this little one's face." How is that possible? Xiao Hua was even more astonished. "You're already at the initial stage of foundation establishment. This is a pretty good realm in your Zhongling Mountain Village. Moreover, you and this Xiao can be considered to be fated. How could Zhong Tianyao possibly expel you from Zhongling Mountain Village?" "This has nothing to do with Patriarch." Zhong Haoren hesitated for a moment and explained the reason for the matter. It turned out that back then, Xiao Hua killed Patriarch Fei Siqing of Ji City's Fei family, and also expelled Patriarch Qin Kai of Fan City's Qin family. Although Patriarch Zhong Tianyao of Yun City's Zhong family was poisoned, under Xiao Hua's detoxification technique, he quickly recovered to his original state. When Xiao Hua was comprehending the ancient refining technique, Zhong Tianyao, who was strategizing, sent troops to attack Fan City's Qin family. That's right, it was Fan City and not Ji City. Qin family's patriarch was scared to death by Qin Kai. When he saw that Zhong Tianyao didn't go to Ji City and instead attacked him first, he was even more frightened. He thought that it was Xiao Hua's instructions. In the end, under Zhong Tianyao's bluff, he only resisted for a few days before hurriedly retreating. He gave half of his family's territory to Zhong Tianyao in exchange for Xiao Hua's forgiveness. Zhong Tianyao naturally knew when to stop and immediately sent disciples to Ji City. A Ji City without a patriarch was practically an empty city without a city gate. The Zhong family's disciples weren't in a hurry to attack Red Crane Mountain. They only surrounded the mountain peak and sent people who were eloquent to persuade them to surrender. Long before the Zhong family came to Red Crane Mountain, the Qin family had already sent disciples over. Not only did they inform the Fei family of Fei Siqing's death, they even revealed a ferocious face and wanted to take Red Crane Mountain into the Qin family's pocket. However, before the Qin family could succeed, they couldn't protect themselves. That was why they hurriedly retreated. Now, the Zhong family that defeated the Qin family came again. The Fei family's elders discussed slightly and reached an agreement with the Zhong family. The content of the agreement was naturally not something that Zhong Haoren could know. But since then, the Qin family had submitted to the Zhong family. This was something that all the disciples of Yun City and Ji City knew. Chapter 2561. Of course, Xiao Hua had already left Zhongling Villa, so he didn't know about Zhong Tianyao's actions. Xiao Hua still thought that it was good enough that the Zhong and Qin families could divide the Fei family equally. But how could he know that Zhong Tianyao's strategy was far beyond his imagination and far beyond his estimation? Since the Zhong family's strength had greatly increased, the Zhong family naturally had to strengthen their control over the Fei family and half of the Qin family. Therefore, many disciples of the Zhong family were sent out. Zhong Haoren couldn't speak, so he was treated as a mute. But after all, he was a 12th level Qi refining disciple, and was also sent to guard a place in the Qin family. Zhong Zhan, Zhong Pei, and Qin Ji were his subordinates. Although Zhong Haoran was disheartened emotionally and was ridiculed by many of his fellow disciples, and even after he was sent to guard the Qin family, there were still some disciples who occasionally used his feelings for Zhong Xiuhan to mock him. But Zhong Haoran didn't care, and instead, his heart of cultivation became more and more firm. His mind also became clearer and clearer. The Qin family was the same as the Fei family. Both of them were weapon refiners, and they also had some cultivation methods. After being annexed by the Zhong family, these cultivation methods naturally flowed into the Zhong family. However, the Zhong family's direct descendants and accomplished disciples didn't care about these foreign cultivation methods. So Zhong Tianyao ordered the disciples guarding the Qin and Fei family to choose the cultivation methods they liked to practice. And the place Zhong Haoran was guarding just happened to have a cultivation method for practicing flying swords, and he even found a good quality flying sword in the Qin family. The moment Zhong Haoran saw the flying sword and studied the sword art, he was immediately attracted by the piercingly cold sword qi of the flying sword. In addition, his cultivation had been stagnant for a long time, so he tried to practice the flying sword art. Who would have thought that Zhong Haoran's character was exactly suitable for flying swords? That sharp, true qi-carrying sword qi. Under the impact of day and night, Xiao Hua's seal on Zhong Haoran's acupoints was actually loosened. The moment the earth crystal Yao milk merged with his true qi was also the moment he built his foundation. Not only did Zhong Haoran easily build his foundation, he was even able to open his mouth and speak. At that time, how could Zhong Haoran not know that this was Xiao Hua's painstaking effort? Previously, he hadn't complained at all, but now, he revered Xiao Hua even more. Although he hadn't reached the level where he worshipped Xiao Hua daily like Fei Yunshu did, every time he thought about it, his heart filled with gratitude. Zhong Zhan and Zhong Pei were also disciples of the Zhong family who started to rise after the Qin family. Because they weren't valued in the Zhongling villa in the beginning, they were very close to Zhong Haoran. After Zhong Haoran built his foundation, they paid more attention to him and gave him pointers. Although he couldn't be considered a master, he was better than a master. As for Qin Ji, because he originally practiced flying sword, although his cultivation was not satisfactory, he had been practicing since he was a child. Sometimes, Zhong Haoran would even ask him. When the Great War of Dao cultivators began, the Zhong clan of Yun City was not considered a big aristocratic family. Although Zhong Tianyao was a golden core cultivator, he was not worthy of the attention of those cultivation sections. Hence, they did not transfer disciples from their clan. However, Zhong Tianyao saw the opportunity of the Great War. He knew that training disciples in the Great War could not only improve their cultivation, but also discover disciples with strategic talents. In his opinion, disciples with strategic foresight were more useful than disciples with high cultivation. After all, he took down the Qin family and the Fei family mostly by relying on his strategy, not by force. Of course, Zhong Tianyao still had the same thoughts as the other disciples who didn't participate in the Great War of Dao cultivators. Not only would there be spirit stones and sword arts, but there would also be flying swords, magic tools, and so on. It was really killing two birds with one stone. In this regard, Zhong Tianyao was even more eager than the disciples of the cultivation sects who didn't participate in the Great War. What supported a family or a sect was not only disciples, but also cultivation techniques. If the Zhong clan obtained more systematic cultivation techniques in the Great War of Sword Cultivators, the Zhong clan might be able to leave the ranks of aristocratic families and become a cultivation sect. And wasn't his annexation of the Fei family and the Qin family the most crucial half-step? Therefore, Zhong Tianyao selected disciples to go to the Huan country to participate in the Great War of Sword Cultivators. In order to control the Fei family and the Qin family, while the Zhong clan dispatched their own disciples, they also dispatched the disciples of the two families to the Huan country. Fei Yunshu was also among them. There were also thousands of disciples in the Zhongling mountain villa. The structure was similar to that of a cultivation sect. A dozen people formed a small team, and each team was led by a foundation establishment disciple. In addition, there was another disciple with a slightly lower cultivation to assist. Zhong Haoran, Zhong Zhan, Zhong Pei, and Qin Ji were in a small team. The leader of this team was a middle-stage foundation establishment disciple named Zhong Jinka. Logically speaking, Zhong Haoran was in the early stage of foundation establishment. It was precisely because he complimented Zhong Jinka that they had a good rapport. However, when Zhong Haoran saw Zhong Jinka, he was extremely embarrassed. Why? It was very simple. Zhong Jinka was Zhong Xiuhan's dual cultivation partner. Ever since Zhong Xiuhan set foot in the foundation establishment realm, her cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds with the support of the mending heavenly pill that repaired her meridians. She had long become a fairy in the eyes of the Zhong clan's male foundation establishment cultivators. Zhong Jinka had also used countless methods to pursue Zhong Xiuhan. This was also normal. However, Zhong Xiuhan inadvertently revealed some of Zhong Haoran's matters. Although she didn't mention Xiao Hua, her apology and gratitude towards Zhong Haoran couldn't be concealed. If Zhong Jinka was a magnanimous person, then it would be fine. However, Zhong Jinka was quite scheming and narrow-minded. When he saw his former lover's follower whose cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds, he had long been displeased with him. As a result, the ugliness in human nature was revealed. First, he wanted to isolate Zhong Haoran. In the case of Zhong Zhan, Zhong Pei, Qin Ji, and Fei Yunshu, the four Qi refining disciples who used flying swords. Following Zhong Haoran, he also isolated these 5 people, dividing a team of more than 10 people into 2. This wasn't all. Over the past 2 years since they arrived at the battlefield of the Cultivation War, Zhong Jinka had constantly placed Zhong Haoran and the others in danger, making them complete nearly impossible tasks. And every time they completed a task, he would take all the credit for himself. Every 6 months, the Zhongling Mountain Villa would send disciples to exchange information and reward and punish everyone. However, Zhong Jinka got all the credit for the team, and Zhong Haoran got none. How could Zhong Haoran stand such a cowardly act? Although he was an upright person with a neutral character, after practicing the flying sword, he was also influenced by the flying sword cultivation method's unbending principle. He had long been cold to Zhong Jinka. If it were not for the strict rules of the Zhongling Mountain Villa, where everything on the battlefield was decided by the captain, he would have returned to the Zhongling Mountain Villa long ago. Zhong Jinka naturally saw Zhong Haoran's reaction and secretly rejoiced. 2 months ago, when Zhong Jinka sent Zhong Haoran to intercept and kill more than 10 sword gestation swordsmen, Zhong Haoran completely turned hostile. Those are 13 swordsmen at the 6th level of the sword gestation realm. Zhong Haoran gritted his teeth and said, "Although I'm at the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, I can handle 5 swordsmen at the 6th level of the sword gestation realm. But what about the 8 swordsmen at the sword gestation realm? How can Zhong Zhan and the other 3 deal with them? This is a sure death situation." Therefore, I immediately objected and proposed that the whole team of 23 disciples of the Zhong family should attack together. However, Zhong Jinka actually said that he had other arrangements for the other disciples, and that he had a more important task. If I don't intercept and kill them, I won't listen to the captain's orders. If I delay this matter, I'll bear the consequences. It's not right for you to go, but it's also not right for you not to go. Of course, you definitely can't go, Xiao Hua said with a smile. If you go, you'll definitely die. Secondly, if you come back alive, he'll ask all kinds of questions and say that it's strange that you escaped from the hands of 13 swordsmen at the 6th level of the sword gestation realm. He'll even say that you were captured by the swordsmen and became their spy. At that time, I didn't think so much. I only knew that I couldn't possibly be a match for those swordsmen. If I went, I would only be throwing away my life. Zhong Haoran honestly replied. So I turned hostile. I resolutely refused to go. Well, in fact, you might as well go, Xiao Hua said again. After you went, You could have avoided the battle and let them make a fuss about you. It's better than falling into their trap. This Zhong Jinka is just a scheming person. He's a careful person. He just wants to expel you from the Zhong family, so that Zhong Yuehan's heart won't be obstructed. Unfortunately, I didn't see it clearly at that time. It wasn't until half a month later that the senior brothers of Zhongling village came to inspect. This guy took the opportunity to report this matter to the senior brothers of law enforcement. At once, he listed several crimes of this little one, such as not listening to orders, delaying the battle, affecting the morale, and so on. He asked the senior brothers of law enforcement to expel this little one from the Zhong family. Zhong Haoran angrily said, "It wasn't until that moment that this little one understood that the human heart is sinister." Ha, of course. Xiao Hua pointed his finger and said, "The most sinister thing in this world is the human heart. The most fickle thing is also the human heart. The most unpredictable thing is still the human heart. You've gone through so many things, and you finally understand. Yes, this disciple has thought it through these days." Zhong Haoran said with relief. It's not that Zhong Jinka didn't have the means to kill this little one, and it's not that he didn't have the opportunity to kill this little one, but he was extremely cautious and didn't act rashly. He has been provoking this little one for the past few years, and I'm afraid that he wanted this little one to make the first move so that he could take advantage of the situation. When this little one didn't do as he wished, he took a step back and wanted to expel this little one from the Zhong family. Yes, or perhaps his original goal was to expel you, so that his wife can cultivate with ease. Xiao Hua nodded. After all, it's more risky for him to kill you, and it will also damage his Dao heart. So, it's not worth it. The human heart. Zhong Haoran sighed. If it was a little purer, how good would that be? Ha ha ha, then it wouldn't be the human heart. Xiao Hua said. Moreover, without this fickle and sinister human heart, where would there be the current Zhong Haoran? Zhong Haoran shook his head sadly. This little one was expelled from the Zhong family, but Zhong Zhan and the others were also implicated. This little one feels very guilty in his heart. Martial Uncle Zhong, Fei Yunshu and the others said respectfully, Martial Uncle's character is noble and pure, and we all admire you. Following Martial Uncle is also our choice. What Spiritual Master said just now was extremely true. If we didn't follow Martial Uncle, I'm afraid our lives would be in danger in the war. Chapter 2562. Hiss. Zhong Haoran came to his senses and took a deep breath. How did you all get here? What are your plans for the future? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. We left the Zhong family's disciples and had to act alone. We wanted to return to Yun City, but it's too far away. We didn't have any spirit stones with us, so we couldn't use the teleportation formation in Sky Patrol City. If we flew back directly, I'm afraid we would die, so we were at a loss. Zhong Haoran did not hide and said, but there are many sword cultivators here, so we couldn't stay for long. We decided to go to Sky Patrol City first and see if there was anyone we knew, then find a chance to return to Yun City. At the very least, we had to stay in Sky Patrol City to save our lives. However, I don't know what happened, but in this month, the number of swordsmen here suddenly increased. Our cultivation was shallow, so we had to hide and hope that the swordsmen didn't notice us. Zhong Haoran smiled bitterly. In fact, we were discovered by the illusory swordsmen several times, but they were extremely disdainful and let us go like flies. 4 hours ago, I had just escaped from an illusory swordsman. When I was fleeing in panic, I found the Ganoderma horse. The Ganoderma horse flew in front of me. So how could I not be happy? However, the Ganoderma horse was too cunning. I chased it for a long time before I could catch up with it and put the confinement talisman on it. When I was about to pick up the Ganoderma horse, the Huanhua sect disciple appeared and took out her magic weapon. If it weren't for the female swordsman, I wouldn't have been able to see her. Zhong Haoran's mouth was dry after talking for a long time. Xiao Hua smiled and clapped his hands. He took out a lot of spirit fruits and gave them to the 5 people. Seeing the 5 people eating happily, Xiao Hua was also very happy. Then he asked, You said that the number of swordsmen in the vicinity suddenly increased? Many of them are illusory swordsmen. Can you tell? I'll let you know. Zhong Haoran ate a spiritual fruit and smiled apologetically. My cultivation is only at the foundation establishment stage, but I've killed a few embryonic swordsmen. Naturally, I have some understanding of the swordsman's cultivation. The illusory swordsman's sword light is reserved, and their divine thoughts cut people like a blade. Of course I can tell. That's strange. Xiao Hua scratched his head. The Dao sect's cultivators wanted to fight to the death with the Huan Kingdom's swordsmen near the Spirit Stone mine. Why would so many illusory swords appear near the sword tomb? The vicinity of the sword catacomb has always been patrolled by the sword cultivator's bright sword and nurturing swordsmen. Even the city guards of the Sky Patrol City would occasionally come over. Zhong Haoran was also puzzled. But recently, the city guards of Sky Patrol City have almost disappeared. Instead, there are more swordsmen like Yujian. Otherwise, why would the disciples of the Zhongling Mountain Villa wander around the sword tomb? Are the other cultivation families the same as the Zhong family? Xiao Hua was used to seeing cultivators from the Dao sect, so he couldn't help but ask. Yes, all the big cultivation families will come. Zhong Haoran nodded. I've also encountered quite a few. After all, we can obtain benefit from sword cultivators or fallen cultivators. It's extremely useful for the development of aristocratic families. However, even if we meet, we will carefully avoid each other. There won't be any great conflict. So that's how it is. Xiao Hua nods. I thought only the cultivation sects were interested in war. These cultivation families also come to participate. Although there won't be any conflict, there should be a lot of small conflicts, right? That's right. Zhong Haoran smiles apologetically. The Zhongling Mountain Villa has had many conflicts with some aristocratic families. The one that left the deepest impression on me is the Yu family from the fallen Gold Mountain in the country of Shi. They are extremely overbearing. When they see other aristocratic families, they will provoke them. In the past 2 years, the Zhongling Mountain Villa has had 6 conflicts with them. Every time, they suffered a great loss. Some of my crimes are that I didn't put in effort when fighting with them. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Xiao Hua snorts, but he doesn't ask why the Yu family is so overbearing. Then, Xiao Hua looks to the north where the sword tomb is located. He ponders and says, could it be that the sword cultivators have some hidden cards here? However, that's not right. If Zhong Haoran and the others encountered it, how can the disciples of the other cultivation sects not encounter it? If I can think of it, how can others not think of it? Although the group of gold core cultivators in the discussion hall are proficient in internal strife, they should be clear about this simple logic, right? Looking at Xiao Hua's thoughtful expression, Zhong Haoran turns to look at the 4 disciples. The 4 disciples seem to understand Zhong Haoran's meaning and nodded slightly. Then, the 5 of them throw themselves on the ground again without hesitation. Io, what are you waiting for? Xiao Hua hears the noise and immediately turns his head. He asks curiously, if there's a problem, we can talk it out. Why make such a big fuss over nothing? Taoist, Zhong Haoran kneels on the ground and says with a bitter smile, we have been expelled from the Zhong family and are already rogue cultivators. Moreover, if we are not wrong, when the Zhong family receives Zhong Jinka's message, they will definitely send disciples to find us. There is an 80 to 90% chance that they will cripple the cultivation of us 5. Even if Zhong Tianyao shows mercy for Taoist and doesn't cripple our cultivation, we will have nowhere to cultivate. We regard Taoist as a god or an immortal and are willing to serve Taoist for life. We ask Taoist to take us in. We hope Taoist can be merciful and take us in. Fei Yinshu is the most pious and has already kowtowed on the ground. Oh, wait a moment. Xiao Hua slowly nods and flicks his sleeves. The 5 of them can only stand up. Zhong Haoran, since he wants to cripple your cultivation, why didn't he do it when he expelled you? Why wait until later? Isn't it the same if he imprisons you first? Xiao Hua asks. Seeing Xiao Hua ask such a trivial question, Zhong Haoran is overjoyed. He knows that Xiao Hua has tacitly agreed to take them in. He answers with a smile. Not all the disciples who were expelled by the Zhong family had their cultivation crippled. Moreover, don't we have some fate with Taoist? Zhong Jinke doesn't know, but that patrolling senior brother knows. Therefore, he doesn't dare to judge whether we have our cultivation crippled or not. What's more, the Zhong family still has to send people to keep an eye on us while we're imprisoned. If they don't, what if we lose our lives? And Zhong Tianyao disagrees with Zhong Jinke's decision. Wouldn't they have to bear the responsibility? Actually, at that time, I wanted to return to Zhongling Villa with that patrolling senior brother to argue with Zhong Tianyao. However, the patrolling senior brother has to go somewhere else, and it's not convenient for him to bring us along. I'm afraid you only thought of relying on me when you saw me just now, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Zhong Haoran nodded slightly and said without hiding anything, "You're right, Taoist. We didn't hear any news of Taoist here. We only thought that Taoist is still an Imperial Thunder sect. How we think of relying on Taoist? Even if we wanted to, we had to go to Sky Patrol City first. It was only when Taoist revealed his face just now that we suddenly realized. We stayed here to wait for Taoist." Ha ha. Well said, well said. This is fortune. This is karma. If all of you leave, then you won't have this fortune. Xiao Hua roared with laughter. Thank you, Taoist. Zhong Haoran thanked him again, but then he said with some worry, however, Taoist is now only in the late stage of foundation establishment. I'm afraid that an Imperial Thunder sect, it's still, if it's inconvenient for Taoist. Zhong Haoran naturally knew that the threshold for cultivation sects to recruit disciples was very high. The 5 of them might not be selected. Although he said that he was serving Xiao Hua, he still had some thoughts about this in his heart. Ha! Who told you that I'm only in the late stage of foundation establishment? Xiao Hua laughed and patted his forehead. The pressure on his body was released like bamboo shoots after a rain, rising steadily. Taoist, seeing Xiao Hua's pressure rise straight to the late stage of golden core and firmly suppressing the 5 of them, an indescribable fear came from their hearts. It seemed that the space around 100 feet around them was frozen. Zhong Haoran and the others cried out in surprise. So Taoist cultivation is already so high. Xiao Hua smiled and slowly retracted his pressure. His realm also slowly fell until it returned to the middle stage of foundation establishment. Since Taoist already has the cultivation of golden core, then we have some connections to join Imperial Thunder sect. Zhong Haoran was overjoyed. When did this Xiao say that he would let you enter the Imperial Thunder sect? Xiao Hua was still all smiles as he spoke. Yes. When Zhong Haoran heard this, the corners of his mouth twitched. He was extremely embarrassed and said, "This little one is thinking too much. This little one is already satisfied to be able to serve Taoist." Haoran, Xiao Hua pointed. "Do you think I'm playing with you? Then, Taoist meaning is?" Zhong Haoran didn't understand and looked at Xiao Hua strangely. As for Fei Yinshu and the others, they didn't have the right to speak and could only listen quietly. "You wait and see." Xiao Hua smiled and took out many sword slips, jade slips, and some of Li Xiubai's and Taoist bright sword arts. This is... Zhong Haoran saw so many things and was immediately stunned. When he used his divine sense to look at some of the things inside, he was wild with joy. This is the sword arts for sword cultivators, from the gestation sword to the drawing sword and the illusory sword. There's also my Dao Sect's flying sword cultivation method. Zhong Haoran stammered. There's also these. Xiao Hua clapped his hands, and dozens of flying swords fell into the air. So many. Zhong Haoran and the others were dumbfounded. It seemed that the 1,000 of them didn't obtain many flying swords in these 2 years, right? With these, do you still need to join Imperial Thunder Sect? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. Of course there's no need. The 5 people looked at the flying swords, and their eyes widened. They had been training in the war for 2 years, and their horizons had long been broadened. They knew that these flying swords were used by 6th-stage swordsmen, and their quality was extraordinary. Moreover, when they heard Zhong Haoran say that there were many sword arts, They were overjoyed and even somewhat in disbelief. Although this kind of resources couldn't be compared to Imperial Thunder Sect, it was still much less compared to Zhongling Villa. However, if the 5 of them were to use it, it would be more than enough. Chapter 2563. Unknowingly, the 5 people's eyes lit up at the same time. They looked at each other and bowed. We pay respect to Sect Master. Sect Master? Xiao Hua was stunned. His surprise was not inferior to the 5 people's. He hurriedly helped them up. When did I say that I want to establish a sect? This Xiao means... Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua also stopped. Yes, his original intention was to find an inheritance for Master Bright's sword and Li Xiubai's flying sword technique. Zhong Haoren's character was upright, and he had experienced the world's tempering. Xiao Hua's test was also easily passed. He was the best candidate to accept this inheritance. When Xiao Hua saw Zhong Haoren at Zhongling Villa that day, he already had this little plan in his heart. Now that Zhong Haoren was expelled from Zhongling Villa, it was also helping Zhong Haoren. He just happened to push the boat with the current and settle his own karma. However, after listening to Zhong Haoren and the others' reminder, Xiao Hua had another thought. That's right. Since the 5 of them have sword arts and flying swords, and Zhong Haoren cultivation is at the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, and I, on the other hand, am comparable to the late stage of the Jindan realm. This kind of strength is more than enough to establish a small sect. Not to mention that there were so many spiritual herbs, pill recipes, and other things in his space. It was more than enough to support a medium-sized sect. Zhang Qingxiao, that guy, could become the sect master of Heavenly Demon Sect. Why couldn't Xiao Hua become the sect master? Back then, Shang Huaming sect master was only a foundation establishment cultivator. Although Hundred Grass sect had many disciples, the sect master was also at the middle stage of foundation establishment. Thinking about the convenience of Zhang Qingxiao having Heavenly Demon Sect, Xiao Hua was somewhat coveting. Not to mention other things, just those dry distance pills and high thunder pills, relying on Xiao Hua alone. It would take a long time to gather them. And the other side only needed a sect master's command, and someone would obediently deliver it to his hands. It was really more efficient than anything else. Grandma, make a sect to play with? Xiao Hua was somewhat moved. But immediately, Xiao Hua shook his head again. Forget it. Not to mention this young master's enemies. Making a sect would increase the number of targets. Adding a few more dead people would be irresponsible to the sect's disciples. Besides, this young master's cultivation is good. Making a sect. There are many matters in the sect, annoying to death. Just look at the group of old gold core cultivators in the assembly hall. Scheming against each other is really boring. The more people there are in the sect, the more it will be the same. Seeing Xiao Hua deep in thought, Zhong Haoren and the others were delighted, but their hearts were also nervous. When Xiao Hua frowned, Zhong Haoren and the others' hearts sank. Sure enough, Xiao Hua opened his mouth. Let's not talk about this matter. These cultivation techniques and flying swords. I'll give them to you. Just focus on your own cultivation. Thank you for your reward, spiritual master. Zhong Haoren put away the cultivation technique and flying sword. He looked very happy, but he was also a little disappointed. Zhong Haoren probed, Perfected one, my cultivation is shallow. If these things are left with me, if they are snatched away, it's fine. Xiao Hua said with a smile. This Xiao has already kept a copy of the cultivation technique and sword art. As for those flying swords, they're all mere worldly possessions. If you want to snatch them, then so be it. Actually, if we have more people, we don't have to be afraid of others. Zhong Haoren took the opportunity to say, Haha, that's up to you, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Feel free to accept disciples. This Xiao won't stop you. Actually, didn't this Xiao say it just now? You can look for babies who can eat good seeds and carefully select them. Their aptitude may not be worse than the direct disciples of the cultivation sects. Perfected one, Zhong Haoren said with a bitter smile. What you said, isn't it just to establish a sect? How about we first establish a cultivation family? Why must we establish a family or sect? Xiaohua looked at Zhong Haoren and asked, I won't hide it from Perfected One. We are now rogue cultivators. We don't have anyone to rely on in the Xiaoyu continent. We don't have any confidence in our hearts. Although we consider Perfected One as our thoughts, you aren't by our side. If there's a family or sect, after all, there are many people. We can also protect ourselves. Zhong Haoren didn't dare to conceal anything and said in a low voice, Moreover, Perfected One Zhao's prestige among the common people of Meng country is very high. You are a Perfected One who is worshipped. If it is like what Perfected One Zhao said just now, the heaven and earth spiritual qi will change greatly. If the descendants of these common people can adapt to the heaven and earth spiritual qi, they will become the mainstay of the Xiaoyu continent in the future. If Perfected One doesn't take advantage of this opportunity to rise and use Perfected One's prestige in their hearts, wouldn't it be a pity? This is an opportunity that is hard to come by. Could it be that Perfected One wants to be used by others? Oh, Xiaohua's heart shook. That's right. Xiaohua was born in a peasant family. Now that he had lost all his memories, he still didn't have any great ambitions. When mentioning cultivation sects, his first impression was that they were troublesome. He was too lazy to get involved. When he heard Zhong Haoren's words, it was as if he was suddenly enlightened. The heaven and earth spiritual qi changed greatly. Every sect was adapting to it in order to protect themselves and strengthen themselves. It wasn't just a dispute between the three countries. For example, the country of Shi Shanhua sect and other sects began to snatch the spirit stone veins. Even this great war between Dao cultivators seemed to be because sword cultivators wanted to break into the Dao sect's territory to snatch the spirit stones. Weren't they all trying to take advantage of the heaven and earth spiritual qi? It wasn't just the spirit stones. In other aspects, cultivation sects were also changing. For example, the cultivation techniques of each sect and the method of selecting disciples had changed. They were exploring and finding a feasible way to adapt to the heaven and earth spiritual qi. And Xiaohua himself, he really was the key to changing the Dawn Rain continent. Not to mention how mystical Xiaohua's space was, not to mention the spirit herbs in his space. Just the improved seed from his space were the most important changes that Xiaohua had inadvertently made for the Dawn Rain continent. Cultivators were also humans. They were also people from the secular world at the very beginning. It was only because of their outstanding aptitude that they had the possibility to cultivate. Those disciples of cultivation sects and cultivation aristocratic families had more opportunities to cultivate and enter the ranks of cultivators only because of their bloodline. Therefore, the foundation of the Dawn Rain continent's cultivation world was still the people of the secular world. Those billions, tens of billions of people of the secular world were the foundation that supported this world. And what Xiaohua did was precisely to change this foundation. Although it was just the beginning and the number of people involved was still very small, didn't Zhong Haoren already say it? There were already many merchants who started to come to Yun City to ask for spirit seeds. In time, this improved seed would certainly cover the entire Dawn Rain continent. All the people of the secular world would have to change to eating Xiaohua's immortal seeds. This was such a great merit. This kind of merit, not to mention the gold core cultivators in the Sky Patrol City's conference hall. Even the nascent soul sect masters of the three cultivation countries couldn't imagine it. Of course, when the cultivators who ate the immortal seeds grew up, the change in heaven and earth spirit qi would have already become the mainstream of the Dawn Rain continent. Those cultivators would naturally turn into countless streams and fall into different sects. Since that was the case, why couldn't Xiaohua at the beginning of all changes, at the beginning of all the cultivation sect's attention, at the beginning of the flow of spirit qi, establish a sect? If he established a sect here at this time, it would certainly be like the great river of flowing ice valley. From small to large, it would be magnificent and even boundless in the end. In short, it could be said that this was an era where ambitious and ruthless people rose one after another. where heroes vied for supremacy, and where the winds and clouds met. Who knew how many famous people would fall here? And who knew how many nameless people would shake the world? And for Xiao Hua, he saw this opportunity and seized it. It's a success. But isn't it too troublesome? After all, Xiao Hua was a cultivator who comprehended the hand of karma. Once he thought about it, he immediately understood 1,000 miles and saw a lot of the future. But then he muttered again. If Zhang Qingxiao was here and understood so much, she would have already taken the bright scenic bell and knocked his head, right? Troublesome. Xiao Hua's whisper fell into Zhong Haoren's ears, and Zhong Haoren was immediately enlightened. His enlightenment came a little late. He, a disciple from an aristocratic family, never thought that there would be a god in the eyes of the secular world who was too lazy to establish a sect because he was afraid of trouble. That's right, Taoist master only concentrates on cultivation. Why would he care about the trivial matters of the secular world? Zhong Haoren thought again. Then Zhong Haoren waved his hand, and the 5 people bowed again. Damn it, what are you doing? Quickly get up. Xiao Hua said anxiously. We asked Taoist master Xiao to establish a sect. If Taoist master doesn't allow it, we won't get up again. Zhong Haoren said loudly. Good. Get up and talk. Although Xiao Hua was forced by the 5 people, he wasn't angry. He waved his hand and said, establishing a sect isn't a small matter. I admit that I don't have the ability. We will discuss it in detail. Yes, Taoist master. Zhong Haoren was overjoyed. He looked at Zhong Zhan and the others and said, if you have anything to say, you can say it to Taoist master. Do you see, if we force others, they will definitely be angry. Taoist master is different from us. He definitely won't blame us. Yes. Zhong Zhan and the others were different from Zhong Haoren. They didn't dare to say much to Xiao Hua and could only smile apologetically. It's not convenient here. Let's find a safe place. Xiao Hua looked around and brought the 5 people to a low place. After the 5 people respectfully asked Xiao Hua to sit, they sat in front of Xiao Hua very respectfully. Haoren, I am now a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. You also know this. I don't know whether I can establish a sect or not. However, I'm afraid it won't be possible. Once the news of this sect is known by the Imperial Thunder Sect, they will definitely send experts to exterminate it. And I can't even protect myself. Moreover, I have many enemies. These enemies are even more powerful than the Imperial Thunder Sect. If I establish a sect, wouldn't I be pulling all of you into the same boat? Also, establishing a sect is not a joke. It requires a lot of manpower, especially manpower who can deal with the sect's affairs. I know what kind of person I am. This sect master. I really don't want to be. Chapter 2564. Seeing that Xiao Hua still wanted to continue, Zhong Haoren hurriedly smiled obsequiously and said, establishing a sect is naturally a major event. It wasn't just what the Taoist master had said. Even the cultivation of spirit herbs, the refinement of medicinal pills, the daily lives of the disciples, and so on. All the details had to be taken into consideration. To be honest, I don't even know where to start. This humble one only came up with this idea on the spur of the moment when I saw the real person. Furthermore, I feel that this path is absolutely feasible. Continue speaking. Xiao Hua knew that Zhong Haoren came from an aristocratic family and was very knowledgeable about these matters, so he nodded. Right now, there are only 5 of us. Including you, there are only 6 of us. It's laughable to talk about establishing a sect. However, don't forget that you're not alone. Behind you are all the people in Yun City, Ji City, and Fan City who have received your kindness. The descendants of these people were also the people of the sage. They are our greatest support. Good boy. This guy is really amazing. Xiao Hua didn't expect Zhong Haoren to have such foresight and unconsciously nodded his head in praise. Seeing Xiao Hua nod, Zhong Haoren is also happy. He bows and says, actually, from what I see, Taoist doesn't need to show up at all. Taoist only needs to make a call, and I don't know how many capable people will join our sect. These disciples will all work for Taoist. There's no need for Taoists to go through any trouble. Even in the early days of establishing a sect, there was no need for a Taoist master to do anything. This lowly one knows that Reverend is now a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect and will be fighting in this place. This lowly one only needs Reverend's permission, and this lowly one, and Zhongzhan and the others will return to Ming country, find a place with spiritual mountains and clear waters, and prepare everything. Reverend need not worry about anything. I feel that as long as we use the name of spiritual master, everything won't be too complicated. Really? Is that true? When Xiaohua heard this, he was overjoyed. Of course. Zhong Haoran smiled and said, in Zhongling Villa, Zhong Tianyao is the patriarch. Other than some important decisions, Zhong Tianyao doesn't need to do anything else. Zhong Peiyuan, Zhong Peifu, and the others were in charge of everything. Spiritual master's reputation is so great. It's really not a big deal to find some capable people and disciples with outstanding aptitude. When we encounter danger, Zhong Tianyao also has to step forward, right? That's true. If Reverend is in charge of a sect and others want to attack, Reverend will naturally lead his disciples to defend against the enemy. Zhong Haoran nodded. Haha, I understand. This Xiao likes to beat people up the most. Xiaohua replied with a grin. That's right. Zhong Haoran nodded. Moreover, in this lowly one's opinion, our sect simply doesn't need to be like this. Spiritual Master's name is not prominent now, but it will definitely shake the world in the future. He will be the god worshipped by all the secular people of the Dawn Rain continent. Who would dare to touch our sect? Hee, you're too naive, Xiaohua sneered. If we establish our own sect without strong support, it will only be a piece of fat meat. As for the rest of the world, it's a fat piece of meat that any cultivator would drool over. That's right. Therefore, I hope that you can be merciful and make plans to establish a sect as soon as possible to protect all the common people in the world. Zhong Haoran went along with the flow and said, let the Xiao think about it. After Xiaohua finished speaking, he closed his eyes and pondered. Zhong Haoran and the others didn't dare to say anything and sat quietly at the side. Xiaohua pondered for more than half a day. After thinking about it, he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. It seemed that establishing a sect and leaving Li Xiubai and spiritual master Brightsword's orthodoxy to Zhong Haoran were essentially no different. It's just that the number of people involved would be greater, and he would bear the title of sect master. If this Xiao doesn't take the position of sect master, Haoran, what will you do? Xiaohua suddenly opened his eyes and asked. Zhong Haoran waited for half a day and unexpectedly heard Xiaohua ask this question. He almost cried and said with a smile, Spiritual master, the core of our sect, is spiritual master. Without spiritual master, how can there be a sect? But this Zhao's enemy is really powerful. Xiaohua hesitated. Actually, Fei Yunshu said timidly, Spiritual master doesn't need to show up. Martial Uncle Zhong is the sect master and spiritual master is the sect master. It's also very good. As long as spiritual master knows that this sect belongs to spiritual master can support this sect at a critical time. This little one doesn't dare to be the sect master. Zhong Haoran turned pale with fright and hurriedly waved his hand. If that's the case, we can give it a try. Xiaohua nodded. Moreover, what's sect master? It's all up to us. Haoran, for your future and also for this Zhao's escape route, this matter of establishing a sect will be handed over to you. Zhongzhan, Qinji, Zhongpei, and Fei Yunshu, you are now the disciples of my sect. In the future, when the sect develops, you will also be meritorious subjects. Thank you, spiritual master, thank you. Zhongzhan and the others originally wanted to call him sect master, but thinking of what Xiaohua said just now, they didn't know how to address him. Xiaohua didn't explain. He scratched his chin as if thinking about something. Spiritual master Qin Ji asked carefully, what is the name of our sect? Oh, what do you think? Xiao Hua asked with interest. At this time, he didn't have any burden. He couldn't do anything about it. He was only the sect master in name. It was like a child playing a game. Heaven and Earth Unified Sect? Flying Sword Sect? Bronze Tomb Sect? Spiritual Master Sect? Zhong Haoran and the others were full of interest. One name after another, they really racked their brains, making Xiao Hua feel warm in his heart. This seemed to be another Shang Huaming. Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't nod his head, everyone was a little nervous. Fei Yinshu stole a glance at them and said softly, "This little one's grandmother was old and weak, but after eating the spiritual master's immortal seed, she lived for several more years. When she was on the verge of death, she seemed to have regained her youth. Before grandmother passed away, she said that meeting the spiritual master was her good fortune, and it was also the good fortune of millions of disaster victims. The spiritual master was also a fortune saint. This little one thinks that this sect's name shouldn't be called Fortune Gate." Great! Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. When he heard the names mentioned by Zhong Haoran and the others, he felt that he should have a more suitable name, or perhaps he knew of his sect's name, but he couldn't think of a name for it. When Xiao Hua heard the name Fortune Gate, he became vigilant. Perhaps he had a sect's name, but that was already in the past. Fei Yunshu's Fortune Gate hit the nail on the head and pointed out the good fortune of cultivation methods. "Many thanks, spiritual master." When Fei Yunshu heard that his name was chosen by Xiao Hua, his face flushed red. It was really glowing, more energetic than if he had eaten a heaven-mending pill. "That's right, Fortune Gate, this is the name." Zhong Haoran's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he shouted happily, "The world's fortune is in our sect. Those who enter our sect will obtain the fortune of heaven and earth. This is in line with the spiritual master's principles." When the Fortune Gate's name was decided, Zhong Haoran rubbed his hands excitedly. Fei Yunshu and the others were also happy, but then Zhong Haoran frowned and looked at Xiao Hua with difficulty. "Spiritual master, although you don't want to be the sect master, this little one's talent is limited, and I may not be able to be the sect master. Most importantly, Zhong Zhan, Fei Yunshu, and the others' status is not easy to decide. Wouldn't it be fine if you were the master of the four of them?" Xiao Hua replied with a smile. Zhong Haoran smiled wryly. "Spiritual master can give us pointers in cultivation, but you want this little one to give him pointers? I'm afraid I don't have the ability, ya." When Fei Yunshu and the others heard this, their hearts beat violently, and they looked at Xiao Hua anxiously. Obviously, Zhong Haoran wanted them to be apprenticed to him. "Haoran, you will temporarily take the position of sect master, and all the sect's affairs will be handed over to you," Xiao Hua said without hesitation. "Other than that, your cultivation, this Xiao has the obligation to give pointers, but now is not the right time. These cultivation techniques will have to be comprehended by yourselves. If Haoran is unwilling to be your master, then all of you can be considered to have entered my Fortune Gate on the same day and become senior and junior brothers." Yes, this disciple understands. Fei Yunshu and the others hesitated, but Zhong Haoran agreed with a smile. Zhong Zhan and the others stood up and saluted Zhong Haoran, greeting the Fortune Gate's eldest senior brother, officially establishing their seniority. Also, this Xiao has something to discuss with everyone. Xiao Hua was happy to see them following the rules, but he suddenly thought of something and asked with a smile, "Spiritual master, please speak." Zhong Haoran said curiously. On the Donrain mainland, one's cultivation realm is the basis of seniority. As long as one's cultivation is one realm higher, they have to address you as senior. This is even more obvious in some cultivation sections. Regardless of your seniority, as long as your cultivation is fast, other disciples will have to call you martial uncle when they see you. There is no difference in seniority. This Xiao feels a little inappropriate. Xiao Hua explained carefully, "This Xiao feels that in my Fortune Gate, regardless of cultivation realm, everyone should be addressed according to seniority. What do you all think?" This, Zhong Haoran was slightly dazed. This seemed to be the cultivation world's rule, and it had always been like this. He had never thought much about it. "It's like this, spiritual master. Zhong Haoran pondered for a moment, then said, "There are only a few of us now, so it's easy to talk about seniority, but what if it's thousands of years later? There are tens of thousands of disciples in the sect, hundreds of thousands, or even millions. If two disciples don't know each other when they meet, how do they address each other? It should be the most convenient to talk about cultivation realm, right? Moreover, the lifespan of cultivators like us is gradually increasing, and as the number of disciples increases, it's inevitable that there will be some differences in age and seniority. How can a young chi refining disciple be a foundation establishment old man's martial uncle? Moreover, even if there is a clear seniority in my fortune gate, there are so many cultivation sects on the Donrain mainland. The seniority is very complicated. How can it be clearly distinguished?" Xiao was a little flabbergasted. He had just casually mentioned it and had some thoughts of his own, but he didn't expect it to be so troublesome. AI, it's reasonable to exist. Perhaps this Xiao's thinking is too simple. Chapter 2565. Taoist Master's Thoughts Are Reasonable. Zhong Haoran smiled. If Taoist Master has such thoughts, why don't we wait until our fortune gate has someone capable in this field and let them consider it carefully? Yes, that's right. Xiao Hua smiled. This Xiao will still give you some pointers in your cultivation. Xiao Hua and the others stayed for several days. Not only did Xiao Hua check their cultivation, he also made them consume the heavenly mending pills and gave them some pointers on flying swords cultivation. Only then did he send them to the Sky Patrol City from the Sword Tomb. When they saw Xiao Hua take out the 7 possibilities sex flowing cloud flying ship, Zhong Haoran prostrated himself in admiration, while Fei Yunshu and the others felt that it was only natural. The journey to the Sky Patrol City was naturally not peaceful. They encountered several groups of sword cultivators, most of whom were around grade 6, and there were even 2 groups of illusory swordsmen. However, what made Zhong Haoran and the others flabbergasted was that all the swordsmen, without exception, were envious when they saw the flowing cloud flying ship. No matter how many people there were, they all surrounded the flowing cloud flying ship. But all the swordsmen, without exception, fled like rats. The reason they fled was because of a single sentence from Xiao Hua and a single magic art. This magic art was naturally Xiao Hua's lightning attracting technique. Xiao Hua waved his hand, and dark clouds appeared in the sky. Crackling lightning flashed in the air. All the swordsmen fell into deep thought when they saw the lightning, and that sentence was, "A terrifying phoenix is here. If you don't want to die, quickly get out of the way." Hearing this, and thinking of Qin Jian's fate, even if Xiao Hua had a huge bounty on his head, these swordsmen were enlightened. None of them dared to stay on the spot. Taoist Master, you. Zhong Haoran saw this several times, and he and his companions were simply stunned. This was really inconceivable. Those swordsmen were comparable to mid-golden core swordsmen, and they were scared away by Xiao Hua's words? This Xiao convinces people with virtue. Xiao Hua was immensely proud. With this unforgettable scene, Zhong Haoran and the others were even more confident about their future and the Fortune Gate's future. More than 10 days later, Xiao Hua arrived at the outskirts of Sky Patrol City. He did not go within 100 miles of the city. Instead, he stopped the flowing cloud flying ship in midair and said with a smile, "Haoran, I will send you here. There will definitely be guards from Sky Patrol City within 100 miles. You will not be harassed by sword cultivators. Nothing will happen. Many thanks, Taoist." Zhong Haoran didn't want to part with Xiao Hua and was reluctant to part with him. When will Taoist Master come to Meng Kingdom? How do we inform Taoist Master that we have chosen the spiritual mountains and rivers? Fei Yunshu and the others had seen Taoist Master Xiao in the past few days, so they had become a little bolder. They asked in a low voice, "Go ahead and do what you need to do. There's no need to inform this Xiao of anything." Xiao Hua smiled. "Once the battle is over, this Xiao will go to Passage City to take a look. With this Xiao's ability, do you think I won't be able to find you?" "Yes, disciple, and the others understand," Fei Yunshu said respectfully, We will worship Taoist every day. Taoist will naturally know. Xiao Hua chuckled, then took out 5 storage pouches and handed them to Zhong Haoran and the others. These are used by my fortune gate. Take one each and give it to Haoran after you get to Meng Empire. All right, if others try to snatch it, let them take it. You don't need to pester them. Remember, this is an external object, and you are the cornerstone of my fortune gate. Yes, disciple understands. Zhong Haoran nodded. However, when they received the storage pouches and looked at the things inside, they couldn't help but feel stupefied. AI, following Taoist Master Xiao. Zhong Haoran and his companions couldn't help but feel shocked. Their faces were probably stiff from shock, right? These are all my fortune gates? Zhong Haoran bit his lips. The sharp pain on his lips proved that he wasn't dreaming. There is no need to talk about the good seeds inside the storage pouches, the medicinal pills, and the spiritual herbs. Zhong Haoran didn't want to talk about them. That mountain of spirit stones. How could he not be shocked? Moreover, Xiao Hua had clearly said that the 5 people's storage pouches were ordinary. What he saw was only 20%. Only 20%, This Xiao is far away in Huan country, so I can't help. You all have to work the hardest. Xiao Huan nodded and said, Moreover, my fortune gate has just been established, so these things are indispensable. Don't look at the many things inside the storage pouches. If the fortune gate is really in its embryonic form, these things may not be enough. Yes, disciple understands. Zhong Haoran and the others' hands were trembling as they carefully put away the storage pouches. Of course, these things belong to my fortune gate. This Xiao does not wish for the disciples I value to have other selfish motives. Otherwise, this Zhao's terrifying phoenix name is not in vain. Xiao Hua's tone changed as he said coldly, Disciple does not dare. Zhong Haoran and the others hurriedly knelt on the ground. We swear a blood oath in the name of Tao Master Xiao that if we covet the things inside the storage pouches, our souls will be devoured by the spiritual fire, living a life worse than death. As soon as these words came out, Xiao Hua felt a strange feeling coming from his Buddha fire. Several drops of indistinct purplish-red beads appeared on the edge of the golden thread. Oh, Xiao Hua could only sense it, but not feel it. Knowing that the oath was made, he smiled and helped the 5 people up. As long as everyone does their best, when the fortune gate prospers, it will also be the time when your name shakes the world. To be honest, the things inside the storage pouches, how can they compare to your glory in the future? We still need Tao Master Zhao's guidance. Fei Yunshu and the others shed tears of gratitude. There's also this. Xiao Hua comforted everyone, then took out a jade pendant and handed it to Zhong Haoran, saying, If Zhong Tianyao comes looking for trouble, just show this to him. Also, if ordinary gold core cultivators come to stir up trouble, take this out as well. After this battle, this Xiao should have some fame, so this item should be of some use. Yes, Zhong Haoran received the jade pendant and looked at Xiao Hua. Seeing Xiao Hua nod slightly, Zhong Haoran immersed his divine sense into the jade pendant and saw a faint image of Xiao Hua standing with his hands clasped behind his back. Zhong Haoran could vaguely see Xiao Hua's face clearly, and then Xiao Hua's unhurried voice sounded, I am Xiao Hua, and this is this Zhao's token. Seeing this token is like seeing the Xiao in person. If any fellow Taoist doesn't give this Xiao face and exterminates this Zhao's descendants, this Xiao will definitely kill his way to your door and exterminate your entire family. Although Xiao Hua's voice was very faint, there seemed to be some kind of magic in his voice. Zhong Haoran trembled in fear and almost threw the jade pendant away. Fortunately, Xiao Hua's hand landed on Zhong Haoran's shoulder, and Zhong Haoran's divine sense immediately came out from the jade pendant. Many thanks for Tao Master Zhao's generous gift. Zhong Haoran was overjoyed. With this item, he felt more confident. There are also these. Xiao Hua touched his storage pouch again and took out a large pile of fire talismans. He said, This is what I got from a sword cultivator. It's extremely precious. Take it to protect yourself. If there's no other choice, Don't take it out. Jade. Jade talismans? Zhong Haoran's mouth almost fell open. It's good that you know. Xiao Huan nodded. If this item were to leak out, my fortune gate would never have a day of peace. That's why I'm only using it as a last resort for self-defense. Yes, this disciple understands. How could Zhong Haoran not know the severity of the matter? He hurriedly put away the fire talismans. All right, this Xiao has nothing else on him. Everything is in your hands. Xiao Hua clapped his hands with a relaxed expression. This disciple once again thanks down Master Xiao for his great kindness. Zhong Haoran couldn't help but kneel again. Fei Yunshu and the others also followed suit. Good. Xiao Hua did not stop them this time. After they finished kneeling, he helped them up and said, This Xiao has done what he should do. The rest is up to you. This Xiao remembers that there was a rogue cultivator organization called Heaven Forsaken. It was formed by rogue cultivators at the early Foundation establishment and Qi refining stage. This Xiao wants to see if you can build my fortune gate into a bigger sect than Heaven Forsaken. Dao Master Xiao, rest assured, Zhong Haoran and the others were full of confidence. How can Heaven Forsaken compare to my fortune gate? My fortune gate will definitely become the #1 sect on the Dawn Rain mainland. Ha ha! This Xiao can rest assured with these words. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, This Xiao looks forward to it. Yes, this disciple and the others will definitely do our best to strengthen our fortune gate. We will definitely not disappoint Dao Master Xiao. Zhong Haoran and the others loudly agreed and flew out of the flowing cloud flying ship. When Zhong Haoran and the others slowly flew away, the corners of Xiao Hua's mouth curved into a faint smile. How could it be so easy to establish a sect? Especially with Zhong Haoran, who was only at the early Foundation establishment stage, and Zhong Zhan, Zhong Pei, Qin Ji, and Fei Yunshu, who were only in the 10th layer of the Qi refining stage. To them, it was not a problem to establish a small-scale sect. It was not realistic to develop it further. Rather than saying that Xiao Hua was willing to take out something to establish the fortune gate, it was better to say that Xiao Hua gave them a spiritual promise, giving them a goal to strive for. Even if they fail, what can they do? Xiao Hua put away the flowing cloud flying ship and turned around with a smile. At least they work hard, at least they have the opportunity to cultivate. It's better than this young master's pitiful self in the past, right? Of course, who knew what would happen in the future? Even Xiao Hua, who had comprehended the hand of karma, couldn't see through it. Perhaps this fortune gate would be similar to the 100 Talisman sect, claiming to be big behind closed doors. Perhaps it would be like what Zhong Haoran had said, becoming the #1 sect on the Dawn Rain continent. Or perhaps it could just barely develop into a cultivation sect similar to the 100 Herbs sect. In short, everything was possible under the heavenly Tao. Which sect's disciple are you? And why are you loitering here? While Xiao Hua was contemplating, a voice sounded in front of him. When Xiao Hua raised his head, he saw a group of Sky Patrol City's city guards flying over. Seeing that the city guards had discovered him, Xiao Hua simply stopped in midair. He waited for a mid-Foundation establishment city guard to lead a group of early Foundation establishment disciples to stop about 10 zhang away from him, then cupped his fists and said, This one is lightning controlling sect Xiao Hua. I have received a special order from the main hall to deal with an important matter. Chapter 2566. The conference hall's special permit. The tall city guard did not let down his guard because of Xiao Hua's words. Instead, he frowned and said, Please take out the special permit, fellow cultivator Xiao. Captain. While the captain was talking to Xiao Hua, 2 or 3 city guards beside him were shocked. The city guard closest to the captain hurriedly whispered to him through telepathy. When Xiao Hua took out his token, the city guard had also finished his telepathy. The captain, who was in the intermediate Foundation establishment stage, was surprised. He even looked at Xiao Hua a few times before he cupped his hands and said, So, it's Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder sect who killed Qin Jian. Chu, sorry for the disrespect. However, fellow cultivator Xiao, please take out your token for me to check, and let Chu confirm your identity. It's my duty, please forgive me. Oh, they issued the reward so quickly? Xiao Hua was surprised when he heard that. In his mind, he had made great contributions in the past and was repeatedly questioned by the conference hall. They even sent people to check. Killing Qin Jian was such a great contribution. Wouldn't the conference hall take a long time to verify it? How could they issue the reward so quickly? Fellow cultivator Chu, please check it. Xiao Hua took out his token and handed it to the city guard. Xiao Hua's command medallion was naturally normal. The seal of the Assembly Hall's special permission medallion was also inside. The city guard surnamed Chu looked at it and very respectfully returned it to Xiao Hua. His previous stern expression changed. However, within this respect, there seemed to be a hint of pretense. Immediately, city guard Chu smiled and said, "Fellow cultivator Xiao, are you going back to Sky Patrol City? Or did you just come out of Sky Patrol City?" Xiao Hua's eyes swiveled, and he replied, "Neither. I was ordered by senior brother Li Zongbao to deliver the news. I was just passing by Sky Patrol City and was thinking about whether to return to Sky Patrol City to meet senior brother Li. Fellow cultivator Chu is here. Fellow cultivator Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction." City guard Chu's eyes lit up, and he said with joy, "Chu was on duty in the south of Sky Patrol City some time ago and did not return to Sky Patrol City. I just heard from my disciple that the notorious sword cultivator Qin Jian was killed by fellow cultivator Xiao and fellow cultivator Li. This was truly satisfying. In particular, Qin Jian sneaked into my Sky Patrol City and assassinated Senior Tuesday. You have avenged my Sky Patrol City. Fellow Taoist Xiao, can you tell me what happened that day?" "You flatter me, you flatter me. It's all thanks to fellow Taoist Li Zongbao's profound magic power. Fellow Taoist Xiao Mao Xiao of Xuanyan School is also formidable. This humble one only played a supporting role from the side. I really don't dare to claim credit for myself." Xiao Hua hastily and humbly declined. Nonsense. Even if Xiao Hua's little tail was raised high, he still didn't dare to casually say out loud. Who knew how Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao reported it in the conference hall? Fellow cultivator Xiao is too humble. We really want to know how that evil Qin Jian was killed. The city guard, surnamed Chu, and the other city guards were envious. Evidently, they truly believed that Xiao Hua, a cultivator whose cultivation was similar to theirs, was able to obtain such a great military achievement because of luck. I really don't dare to claim credit for myself. Xiao Hua's face was slightly red, as if he was really ashamed. The more Xiao Hua acted like this, the more the city guards surnamed Chu pestered him. It was as if they really saw that if they had followed Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao to Flowing Ice Valley, Qin Jian would have been killed by them. Xiao Hua sneered in his heart, but his face was really red. This guy's blushing technique was absolutely perfect, even more skillful than the heaven and earth in the sleeve technique. Fellow Taoist crooked soul, farewell. Xiao Hua flew up and activated the command medallion with a flip of his hand. He said, "I'll call Senior Marshal Brother Li Zongbao over and let him tell you about it. I still have a mission to complete." Haha, all right. The city guard, surnamed Chu, was also proud of himself. He was happier than killing Qin Jian, as if he had caught Xiao Hua's hypocrisy behind the military achievement. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's token didn't shine at all. Obviously, either the Sky Patrol City had blocked the transmission of the token, or Li Zongbao wasn't in the Sky Patrol City. Fellow Taoist Xiao, a city guard next to him smiled and said, "As early as a few days ago, the Golden Core Stage Masters in the meeting hall had led the disciples of various sects to the battlefield. I'm afraid fellow Taoist Li Zongbao has also left the Sky Patrol City with the disciples of the Utopia faction." "Oh." Xiao Hua's face was slightly shocked. "They've gone. Why didn't they inform me? I'm afraid fellow Taoist Li has other plans?" The city guard, surnamed Chu, said with a smile. "Oomph." Xiao Hua sneered and thought to himself, knowing that the disciples of various sects have already left the Sky Patrol City. They're still here making a fuss and not telling me the news. They're obviously making fun of me. Damn it, it seems that the Sky Patrol City doesn't care about the reward in the meeting hall. Of course, I'm not even at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage, so it's inevitable that they'll look down on me. Fellow Taoists, please enlighten me. Xiao Hua hurriedly asked. I wonder where Senior Brother Li or the Imperial Thunder Sect are going to fight. This is a secret order from the meeting hall. We don't know about it. The city guard surnamed Chu said with a smile. At this time in the Sky Patrol City, there are disciples from various sects guarding the city. If fellow Taoist Xiao is in a hurry, you could go to the Sky Patrol City to ask first. No need. Xiao Hua hurriedly flew up and cupped his hands. I still have a mission to complete. I'll look for them after I've completed it. With that, Xiao Hua's figure headed towards the northwest, looking a little flustered. After Xiao Hua's figure disappeared, the city guard surnamed Chu burst out laughing. Even the other city guard were swaying back and forth. Damn it, this Xiao Hua is really lucky with such a cultivation level, and he could even kill Qin Jian? If it weren't for the support of Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction and Xiao Mao from the Xuanyan school, would have been killed by Qin Jian? You're right. Another city guard laughed until he was out of breath and said, Look at his blushing face. He also knows how to feel ashamed. Also, when he heard about joining the battle, he immediately flew away, as if he was afraid of knowing where the battle line was. Such a cultivator. How could he make any contributions? He's just lucky. It's not that his cultivation level is high. A city guard said sarcastically. At this moment, a red message talisman flew over from the direction of the Sky Patrol City and stopped in front of the city guard surnamed Chu. The city guard managed to stop laughing and caught the message talisman. After he immersed his divine thought into it, his expression suddenly changed to one of extreme awkwardness and embarrassment. What's wrong? Captain Chu, a few city guards hurriedly asked. The city master's secret order sent it to all the teams on duty in the Sky Patrol City. The city guard surnamed Chu said word by word. If you find traces of Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect, do not disturb him immediately. Directly report to the city master's mansion. All the city guards were shocked, and the sarcastic disciple almost screamed, What's going on? As the city guards of the Sky Patrol City, they knew better than anyone else the meaning of the sentence. If you find traces of Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect, do not disturb him. Immediately report to the city master's mansion. Quickly send the message talisman to the city master. Captain Chu ordered a city guard beside him. Then he turned and flew into the air. But after flying for less than 30 meters, he stopped again. His eyes gazed in the direction Xiao Hua had disappeared, and he forcefully extinguished the thought of pursuing him. He waved his hand and said, You all continue to patrol. Chu will go and meet the city master. Yes, I understand. The city guards replied in unison, then flew up again and continued to patrol in the same direction as before. However, their eyes were still looking in the direction where Xiao Hua flew. They really did not know. How did this disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, whose cultivation level was only in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage, offend the Snow Region Master? Of course, Xiao Hua did not know that when he sent Zhong Haoren and the others back to the Sky Patrol City, in a lofty city master's mansion in the Sky Patrol City, the Snow Region Master, whom he was afraid of 2 hours ago, was sitting cross-legged on the cattail hassock. His eyes were slightly narrowed, and no one knew what he was thinking. However, his expression was not calm, which showed that he was not meditating. Strange. Why do I feel a little uneasy? The Snow Region Master opened his eyes slightly, and there was a trace of confusion under his eyelids. Could it be that there is a breakthrough in the Qian Zhan mysterious technique? After the Snow Region Master circulated his technique, his snow-white eyebrows trembled slightly, and the confusion turned into a trace of ecstasy, but it disappeared in a flash. I really did not expect this. The Qian Zhan mysterious technique, which I have not made any progress in all this time, is actually making progress here. This progress is not much, but no matter what, it is the biggest progress in the last 100 years. The Snow Region Master's expression returned to normal, and he thought to himself, "Before the Dao Cultivator War, I went into closed-door cultivation for more than 10 years and took countless pills, but I didn't see any progress. This Dao Cultivator War has only been going on for 10 years, and I have been so worried about the war that I didn't have time to cultivate. I didn't even do my homework, but my cultivation level has actually improved. It's really like when you plant flowers, the flowers don't bloom, but when you plant a willow, the willow grows." Thinking about this, the Snow Region Master raised his eyebrows and whispered, "Lingbai, you have been waiting outside for 2 days. What can you do for me?" Following the Snow Region Master's words, there was a flash of light, and Fong Lingbai's figure appeared outside the door. When Fong Lingbai heard the Snow Region Master speak, he was very surprised. He quickly walked in and bowed. "Disciple has nothing special to do, but I heard that the city master hasn't dealt with any city matters during this time. So Disciple came to tell the city master about the war." What is there to say?" The Snow Region Master sneered. "In this Dao Cultivator War, my Dao sect will suffer a great loss. There is no one among this group of Golden Core cultivators that knows how to strategize, so how could they gain an advantage? They can only wait for those old nascent soul cultivators to clean up their mess." Chapter 2567. Fong Lingbai wanted to laugh, but did not dare to laugh when he heard Sage Shuiyu say, "Wipe his ass." However, based on Sage Shuiyu's words, Fong Lingbai knew that Sage Shuiyu was in an extremely good mood. After a while, Fong Lingbai suppressed his laughter and reported, "In the past few days, the conference hall has sent out orders for disciples from all sects to go on expeditions. We've already found out the power distribution of the sword cultivators in the Huan Kingdom. Based on this information, the conference hall has sent out another order for the final battle. Now, the Golden Core cultivators in the conference hall have set out on a large scale, bringing all the cultivators to the Huan Kingdom. Our Sky Patrol City has also sent out more than 80,000 disciples." As he spoke, Fong Lingbai held up a jade pendant above his head. "I've asked the city lord about this matter, but the city lord ignored me, so I can only act on my own." It's fine." Master Shuiyu grabbed the jade pendant and it flew into his hand. However, he didn't even look at it. He nodded and said, "Everything related to the war in the Sky Patrol City has been handed over to you and Jean Kong. Your decision is my decision. No matter how stupid you are, you don't need me to wipe your ass for you." "Huh?" Fong Lingbai couldn't help but laugh. He bowed respectfully and said, "Disciple congratulates the city lord on improving your cultivation again." "Ha ha!" Master Shuiyu laughed loudly. "My cultivation is still not enough. He still saw through it. Disciple has followed the city lord for over 100 years. The city lord treats Disciple like a nephew. Disciple knows that the city lord is focused on cultivation and doesn't pay much attention to the war. Previously, the city lord was in a bad mood and didn't even see Disciple. Now that the city lord is in a good mood, Disciple naturally knows. It has nothing to do with the city lord's state of mind." Fong Lingbai said honestly. That's right. Master Shuiyu wiped his eyebrows with his finger and said with a smile, "Although I don't pay much attention to the war, I still know the general trend. However, the conference hall sent out the order for the final battle so early, which is beyond my expectations." When Fong Lung heard this, he was just about to take out a jade slip from his sleeve. However, when he saw Shuiyu Jinren's rare interest, he stopped himself and smiled. "What does the city lord think?" According to this old man's original opinion, the conference hall would release some bait to lure out sword cultivators from the country of Shi and country of Lian. Then they would kill them one by one. This way, perhaps they could delay it for 3 to 5 years. But now, how do these core formation brats suddenly have the courage? A decisive battle? This is something this old man didn't expect. Perfected Shuiyu seemed to be deep in thought. If they had the guts to do so, coupled with Tu Hong's scheme, the battle between Dao cultivators would have been decided long ago instead of being pushed to the outskirts of Sky Patrol City by sword cultivators. Haha, Fong Lingbai smiled and wanted to put his hand in his sleeve, but Master Shui raised his voice again. Lingbai, yes, Sir City Lord, what instructions do you have? Fong Lung's hand stopped as he hurriedly asked. Is there any movement near the Sore Mound? Sore Mound? Fong Lingbai was taken aback. After thinking for a moment, he smiled bitterly and said, Well, Sir City Lord, this time, many sword cultivators have forced their way into the country of Shi and country of Lian. The Sword Mound is already behind the sword cultivators' defensive line and is very far away. The city guards of Sky Patrol City can't patrol the Sword Mound together with the disciples of the various sects during the battle between sword cultivators. Although I've already sent my disciples out, they can only patrol once every 10 days. This time, there's a high possibility that some disciples will die. Therefore, I don't have a detailed grasp of their movements. Of course, according to my recent news, as well as the information from the spies in the country of Huan, there are no strange movements in the Sword Mound. There are only some sword cultivators who are pregnant with swords, some small sects that didn't participate in the battle, and some cultivation families that are active there. Of course, our pawns in the country of Huan have low cultivation levels and are not valued by the sword cultivators. Their knowledge is also limited. Those cultivators must be crazy from poverty. The Sword Mound is already far away from our cultivators' defensive line and is behind the sword cultivators. They still dare to go there. Perfected Shui Yu sneered. It's precisely because it's behind the sword cultivators that the sword cultivators are less vigilant. Those low-level cultivators have a chance. Fong Lingbai smiled apologetically. Even if the sword cultivators are less vigilant, it's not something they can covet. Any illusory sword that appears will be enough to wipe out their sects, right? Yes. That's why birds die for food and men die for wealth. Fong Lingbai agreed. What about the conference hall? Perfected Shui Yu suddenly asked. The conference hall? Fong Lingbai was startled, but he immediately understood. A strange expression appeared on his face. Sir City Lord, are you talking about the conference hall's attention to the Sword Mound? What? Perfected Shui Yu was surprised, and his face was filled with disbelief. Could it be that the conference hall? That's right. Fong Lingbai smiled bitterly. The conference hall didn't send any disciples to patrol the Sword Mound. It seems from their actions, I didn't see how important the Sword Mound was to them. They only told me when they were stationed in Sky Patrol City to inform them if there was news about the Sword Mound in Sky Patrol City. Perfected Shui, you didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He slapped his forehead and said, Oh my God, the Sword Mound is the last barrier for the sword cultivators to retreat. If they don't know about the situation in the Sword Mound, and the sword cultivators are forced to retreat, will they chase after them? Maybe they have been suppressed by the sword cultivators, and the battle line has long gone beyond the Sword Mound. They never thought that there would be a day where they would fight the sword cultivators to the Sword Mound, right? Fong Lingbai replied with a smile. It was as if this war was a good show happening beside Sky Patrol City, and had nothing to do with them. How can such a kid defeat the sword cultivators? Perfected Shui Yu snorted. Looks like there won't be any Golden Core disciples who can stand out in this war. Of course. Which Golden Core cultivator can compare with Junior Brother 2? Fong Lingbai couldn't help but blurt it out. But when he said it, his heart trembled, and he stole a glance at Perfected Shui Yu. Perfected Shui Yu only snorted. I naturally think highly of Tu Hong's talent, but he's too bold. And he's unlucky. Yes, but Fong Lingbai touched his sleeves again. Just as he was about to speak, Perfected Shui Yu asked again, Lingbai, you said that the meeting hall doesn't care about the Sword Mound. Although Sky Patrol City patrols the Sword Mound, the swordsmen in the Sword Mound aren't important. Could it be that the sword cultivators this time are all mediocre? They didn't make an issue out of the Sword Mound? I'm not sure. Fong Lingbai smiled apologetically. After all, the Sword Mound is behind the sword cultivators, and the Sword Mound is thousands of miles wide. We can't completely inspect it, so who knows what's inside? Of course, according to the records of the previous war, The sword cultivators have a 50% chance of resisting stubbornly in the sword mound, blocking our cultivators outside the sword mound. After all, once we break through the sword mound, we'll be in the Huan country's territory. T-Sich, so what about the Huan country's territory? That place is even colder than my snow region's highlands. Who want to go there? Perfected Shui Yu was disdainful, then sighed. Sigh. It's a pity that our Dao Sec's transportation array has been lost. If we had a formation master to refine it, this war wouldn't be so difficult. Haha, if there was a transportation array, I'm afraid this war would be even more difficult. Fong Lingbai smiled apologetically. Ha, that's right, those golden core brats in the meeting hall. I'm afraid they would have been beaten into cowards by the sword cultivators. Our Sky Patrol City's spirit stone veins wouldn't have fallen into their hands. Perfected Shui Yu laughed. Yes, Fong Lingbai nodded, then said, that's right, according to the latest war report, the spirit stone veins in the 7 Extremes Mountains have been seized by the Imperial Thunder Sect and the Huanhua Sect. Haha, the latest war report is in your sleeve, right? Perfected Shui Yu laughed. Yes. Fong Lingbai wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled. I should have taken it out long ago, but seeing the city lords so happy, I didn't want to disturb you. Show it to me. Perfected Shui Yu stretched out his hand and said, see if there's any other good news. Yes, sir. Fong Lingbai raised the jade slip and said with a smile, besides this, there's another piece of good news. Oh, what is it? Perfected Shui Yu took the jade slip and asked casually. Qin Jian, who tried to assassinate junior brother Tu Hong, was killed by 3 cultivators from the Dao sect. This can be considered as helping Sky Patrol City vent our anger. Fong Lingbai said with a smile, but then he thought of something and hurriedly said, of course, even if the City Lord's judgment is that Qin Jian might not be the one who tried to assassinate junior brother Tu, these 3 disciples from the Dao sect have helped us vent our anger. This Qin Jian was too arrogant. He even killed 3 golden core cultivators before he died. Oh, which 3 golden core cultivators? Perfected Shui Yu was surprised to hear that Qin Jian had been killed, so he probed the jade slip with his spiritual force and asked casually, not golden core cultivators. 3 foundation establishment stage disciples. Fong Lingbai smiled apologetically. The report in the meeting hall was a little vague, but it should be that Qin Jian was severely injured by the 3 golden core cultivators, and the 3 foundation establishment stage disciples took the opportunity to kill him. How is that possible? Perfected Shui Yu said coldly. Qin Jian was a 3rd-grade illusory swordsman, and his cultivation level was comparable to an advanced golden core cultivator. How could 3 foundation establishment stage disciples kill him? This credit, I'm afraid it's fake, right? Fong Lingbai's back was drenched in cold sweat when he saw Perfected Shui Yu's gaze. He quickly smiled apologetically and said, the fake credit was done by the disciples of the various sects who participated in the battle. It has nothing to do with Sky Patrol City. Who would dare to fake the credit for something as important as killing Qin Jian? Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction even brought back Qin Jian's head and sword token, so it can't be fake. Oh, Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction, Xiao Mao from the Xuanyin school, Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect? Perfected Shui Yu frowned and said in confusion, one is in the Advanced Foundation Establishment stage, one is in the Middle Foundation Establishment stage, and one is at the peak of the Initial Foundation Establishment stage? Isn't this a joke? Even if Qin Jian was lying there, his flying sword was not something that the 3 of them could block, right? Chapter 2568. City Governor, do you believe me? The cultivators in the meeting hall believe me. I couldn't wait for the city governor's order, so I sent the promised reward to the meeting hall without permission. Fong Lingbai said hesitantly, I didn't dare to delay this matter that involved junior brother Tu Hong. I didn't want to hurt the disciples of Sky Patrol City. Humph, there must be something fishy about this. Shui Yu Perfected Master said coldly. The swordsman who assassinated Tu Hong wasn't Qin Jian. I was lured by a sword that day, and I left Sky Patrol City on the day Tu Hong was assassinated. I saw Qin Jian hundreds of miles away from Sky Patrol City. If he could assassinate Tu Hong before me, he would be a divine sword cultivator. Fong Lingbai was shocked. So, the person who assassinated Junior Brother Tu in Sky Patrol City wasn't Qin Jian? Then, who is this fake Qin Jian? According to the cultivators at the scene, this fake Qin Jian was Qin Jian's face, and he was also using flying sword techniques. Especially the sword formation, it's definitely not my Dao cultivator's flying sword. The flying sword and the sword formation are not surprising. Shuiyu perfected master's face darkened. There are two key points. First, how did the assassin escape from Sky Patrol City? Second, what's so special about the sword formation that it made Tu Hong, who was always calm, go crazy? Fong Lingbai suddenly thought of a possibility. He gasped and said in shock, "Could it be? City Governor, that's right." Shuiyu perfected master's tone was terrifying. I've been thinking about these days, and I think that the assassin might not have left Sky Patrol City at all. So my tricks at the city gate and teleportation formation were ineffective. Besides, if the assassin could impersonate Qin Jian, he could also impersonate someone else. That's how he escaped my detection. Also in the sword formation, I'm afraid there's some soul cultivator's item that could disturb people's minds. Soul cultivator? Fong Lingbai bit his lips. Could it be that a soul cultivator is here too? That's possible. Shuiyu perfected master narrowed his eyes. Then, he raised his eyebrows and said loudly, "Golden Pit, why are you so flustered?" When Fong Lung heard this, he smiled apologetically and said, "Senior Brother Jean is impatient and doesn't have the time to wait outside the hall. He has already been here a few times. Seeing the city lord open the hall today, I'm afraid there's something going on." Disciple Jean Kung greets the city lord. Jean Kung walked up to the main hall and bowed. "All right, get up." Shuiyu waved his hand and said, "You rushed into the main hall the moment you enter my residence. Is there something important?" "Yes," Jean Kung said as he took out a jade slip from his bosom, handed it forward and said, "Yesterday, I cleaned up the jade slip and found that before Tu Honglin left, there was a period of time when the records of the meeting hall were not sent to the mansion. So I went to Tu Hong's mansion and found this jade slip in the closed study room." "Oh, is there anything special about it?" Shuiyu Sage asked patiently. Jean Kung was also stunned. He raised his head and looked at Shuiyu. Just like Fong Lingbai, he immediately sensed that Shuiyu was in a good mood. He glanced at Fong Lingbai and bowed. "Disciple congratulates City Lord for improving your cultivation." "Ha ha ha." Shuiyu Sage laughed and said, "Tell me, what did you find?" "This." Jean Kung bit his lips and said hesitantly, "Disciple checked this jade slip and found something strange in it." Tu Hong recorded what happened in the meeting hall during those days, including Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction and Xiao Hua from the Thunder Control sect. "Oh, is there also Xiao Mao from the Xuanyin school?" Fong Lung asked in surprise. "Yes, it's the three people who killed Qin Jian." Jean Kung obviously knew about this and nodded. However, according to the records in the Jade Slip, Xiao Mao had just been rescued by Xiao Hua from the Yingyang Twin Springs Mountain. Oh, or rather, he was brought back. Daoist master Shui's snow-white eyebrows twitched even though there was no wind. He suddenly had a bad feeling. In this Jade Slip, Li Zongbao and Xiao Hua's series of military exploits are recorded. This disciple found it inconceivable. These two Foundation establishment cultivators did many things that even Golden Core cultivators couldn't accomplish. This disciple won't speak of the specifics. This Jade Slip has all the records. Sir City Lord will know with a single glance. Jean Kung said concisely. What surprised me the most was that at the end of the Jade Slip, Junior Brother Tu Hong wrote this sentence. What sentence? Fong Lung interrupted curiously. According to disciples' observation, Li Zongbao and Xiao Hua must have a secret skill that can greatly improve their cultivation in a short period of time. Moreover, This person is very intelligent and seems to be hiding something. If it's Li Zongbao, then he has a domineering aura behind his arrogance. If it's Xiaohua, then he has a murderous aura behind his modesty. However, according to disciples' observation of the golden core stage cultivators in the meeting hall, they seem to have noticed it too, but they didn't point it out. I think these Dao sect cultivators must be plotting something. Maybe they want to suppress our Sky Patrol City, or maybe they want to show off their power to us. Of course, Li Zongbao is the main reason, because Hung Lu always helps Li Zongbao cover up at the crucial moment. Moreover, Disciple feels that some of Xiao Hua's achievements were given to him by Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao. This is nothing. Fong Longbi asked curiously. The three cultivators have a good relationship. Otherwise, they wouldn't have joined hands to kill Qin Jian. Junior brother Fong, don't be anxious, Jin Kong said coldly. I haven't finished speaking. Junior brother Tu Hong said. If this person is Xiao Hua, then it's too scary. City Lord, please be careful. Wong, the sound of wind and clouds surging immediately sounded from the main hall, and a hurricane instantly swept through the entire main hall. The hurricane made Fong Longbi and Jin Kang's robes flutter, and they were so scared that their faces turned pale. The two of them hurriedly lowered their heads, not daring to say anything. Obviously, they knew that Shuiyu Master was angry. After a while, Shuiyu Master retracted his spiritual sense from the jade slip and said coldly, Tu Hong died a good death. What a good death. He actually died in the hands of a Dao sect cultivator. City Lord. Jin King's face showed a trace of confusion. Senior brother Jin, just now, City Lord said that the person who killed Junior Brother 2 was definitely not Qin Jian. He saw Qin Jian outside the city that day. Fong Longbi said softly. See, it could be this Xiao Hua. Jin Keng naturally knew about the matter between Tu Hong and Dui Qiming. He immediately pointed out Xiao Hua. This is not possible, right? Do you still have the list of people who entered and left Sky Patrol City those few days? Shuiyu Master asked coldly. Yes. Fong Longbi hurriedly took out a jade slip. This item was very important, so he carried it with him at all times. Shuiyu Master took a closer look and threw it to Fong Longbi. Take a look yourself. On that day, Li Zongbao, Xiao Mao, and Xiao Hua returned to Sky Patrol City. Yes, Fong Longbi's expression changed after looking at it. Xiao Hua, Cui Hongshun, and Dui Qiming were all from Imperial Thunder Sect's first team. When he returned to Sky Patrol City, he knew that Cui Hongshun and Dui Qiming were going to dual cultivate. When he returned to Imperial Thunder Sect's encampment, he saw that Cui Hongshun had been deceived or that Qian Mo had put him under house arrest. Thus, he had evil intentions and sneaked into Junior Brother 2's residence. It seems Dui Qiming and Xiao Hua didn't have much of a relationship, Could it be that Cui Hongshun and Xiao Hua had a life and death relationship? There was no need to kill Junior Brother 2, Jin Kong was confused. Do you know why Tu Hong didn't dare to send this to you in time? Shuiyu Master snorted. He might not have time, but the biggest reason was that he didn't dare to believe it. Why did the last sentence of the Jade Slip say that Xiao Hua was scary? He felt that the survival of Imperial Thunder Sect's first team could be due to Xiao Hua's strength. How is that possible? Fong Longbi and Jin Kung couldn't believe that the spirit howl array of Mount Quanjin that even nascent soul cultivators didn't dare to touch was broken by Xiao Hua, and he was still safe and sound inside. Of course, this was only his suspicion. Tu Hong was afraid that mentioning Mount Quanjin would provoke me, but he didn't dare to not take revenge. So he was hesitant. It was also because of this hesitation that Xiao Hua had time to take his life. Shuiyu Master said faintly. His anger had gradually subsided. Of course, if it was like what City Lord said, that Xiao Hua's strength was close to the nascent soul stage, then his contributions, his return to Sky Patrol City to assassinate Tu Hong, and even killing Qin Jian would all be extremely easy. Fong Longbi asked in confusion. But why didn't Qian Mo know about Xiao Hua's cultivation? Then why didn't the Golden Core cultivators in the meeting hall know? Why didn't they say it out loud? Firstly, they didn't know that the person who assassinated Junior 2 was definitely not Qin Jian. Didn't the city lord also suspect that it was a soul cultivator? Even he didn't suspect the Dao sect cultivators. How could they have thought of it? Jin Kung retorted. Furthermore, even if they saw something, that Xiao Hua is a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. What does it have to do with them? Qian Mo, that sanctimonious thing, is blind. I'm afraid he really couldn't see it. Why would those Golden Core cultivators remind him? I still don't agree. This is a 1 in a million situation. Of course, this is also the most ideal deduction. Fong Lungbi stubbornly disagreed. What if? If there wasn't this, how could I cultivate to the nascent soul stage? If there wasn't this, how could you all condense your core? Shuiyu Master laughed sinisterly. I have a feeling that this Xiao Hua is the main force that killed Qin Jian. Hearing Shuiyu Master's words, Fong Longbi didn't dare to say anything else. Where's Xiao Hua now? Shuiyu Master asked, reporting to the city lord. Fong Longbi hurriedly said, according to the meeting hall, he didn't even return to Sky Patrol City. He was sent somewhere else by Li Zongbao. What place? This, the meeting hall didn't say. This disciple doesn't know. Chapter 2569. That's right. Xiao Hua must have a guilty conscience. Jin Kong said coldly. If he returns to Sky Patrol City and the city lord finds out that he killed Qin Jian, he will definitely think of his cultivation. How can he escape from the city lord's search in Sky Patrol City? Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua. Shuiyu Dao Master gritted his teeth. Thinking of the place where Qin Jian disappeared, it was not far from Imperial Thunder Sect. How could he not know that he was tricked by Xiao Hua? Send out the city lord's secret order. Shuiyu Dao Master ordered in a low voice. If any disciple on duty discovers Xiao Hua's whereabouts, immediately inform the city lord's residence. Yes, disciple understands. Jin Kung hurriedly sent out the order. Fong Lung Bi hurriedly said, Xiao Hua is in Imperial Thunder Sect's army right now. City lord might as well inform Qianmo. Idiot. Shuiyu Dao Master scolded. Xiao Hua even killed Qin Jian and Tu Hong without any scruples. How would Qianmo know his background? No wonder Qian Leizi did not come to Sky Patrol City to attend Tu Hong and Dui Qiming's dual cultivation ceremony. He has a guilty conscience. Even Dui Qiming's master and Dui Qiming's master took the opportunity to come to Sky Patrol City and did not disembark from the Thunder ship to greet me. It seems they have a guilty conscience. Yes, disciple is stupid. Fong Lung Bi saw Shuiyu Dao Master scolding him, which was rare, and his body trembled, and he lowered his head. Yes, disciple understands. Imperial Thunder Sect must not know about this. Jin Kung sent out the city lord's order and added, Xiao Hua should only be killed quietly. Otherwise, with his contributions, the city lord wouldn't be able to easily make a move. Furthermore, at this point, Jin Kung also shrunk his neck and did not dare to speak anymore. Yes, Shuiyu Dao Master killed Xiao Hua as a nascent soul cultivator. Xiao Hua's strength aside, Xiao Hua was only a Foundation Establishment disciple. In front of Shuiyu Dao Master, he was just a child. If Shuiyu Dao Master directly faced Xiao Hua, then wouldn't that be a joke? But Xiao Hua could even kill Qin Jian and Tu Hong. He and Fong Lingbi might not be his opponent. Shuiyu Dao Master would not let others do it. However, if Master Shuiyu didn't make a move now, who knew where Xiao Hua would run off to after the battle? Even if he returned to the Imperial Lightning Sect, Shuiyu would not be able to force the Imperial Lightning Sect. After all, everything was just speculation. Sky Patrol City did not have any evidence to prove that Xiao Hua was the one who killed Tu Hong. Moreover, even if Xiao Hua admitted to killing Tu Hong, why would he kill Tu Hong? Quan Jinshan and Dui Qiming were both Xiao Hua's reasons. If this layer of responsibility was revealed, how could sect leader Qian Leizi not protect his own Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples? Lung Biao, go to the Imperial Thunder Sect again and see what the relationship between Xiao Hua and Shui Hongshan is. Shuiyu spiritual master looked at the ashen-faced Fong Long and said, "The reason why he wanted to assassinate Tu Hong was because of Jinquan Mountain, but I can't figure out why he would be so anxious. If he were to assassinate Tu Hong while he was out of the city, even with this information, I wouldn't suspect him." "Yes, disciple will head over now." Fong Lung hurriedly left. In less than half a cup of tea's time, Fong Lung hurriedly returned with a strange expression on his face. Reporting to City Lord. Fong Lung took a deep breath and said, "Disciple has asked clearly. Xiao Hua and Chui Hongshen are from the Lightning Palace's myriad Thunder Valley. They are true brothers." No wonder. Shuiyu spiritual master and Jin Kung were enlightened. At this moment, a message talisman was sent from outside and landed in Jin Kang's hand. Jin Kung frowned and crushed the message talisman. A disciple's voice was heard, reporting to City Lord. Chu Hong, who was patrolling outside Sky Patrol City, saw Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect. "Quick!" Jin Kung hurriedly waved his hand, and a message talisman shot out like lightning. However, Shuiyu spiritual master was even faster than the message talisman and rushed out of the main hall. "Let's go." When Jin Kung and Fong Lung went out, Shuiyu spiritual master was long gone. Only Chu Hong, who had just returned to Sky Patrol City, was left. "When and where did you see Xiao Hua?" Fong Lung hurriedly asked. "Just now," Chu Hong hurriedly said. "Disciple had just finished interrogating Xiao Hua when I received the City Lord's order." Disciple did not stop at all and used the teleportation talisman to return here. Go and receive your reward," Fong Lung ordered. After Chu Hong left, he turned to look at Jin Kong and said thoughtfully, "Once the City Lord goes, the truth will definitely come to light. Yes, if the City Lord captures Xiao Hua, there's no need to say." Jin Kong nodded. "But if the City Lord can't capture Xiao Hua, there's still no need to say." "But," Fong Lung was still hesitant and said in a low voice, "there's still something I don't understand." "Then, how did Xiao Hua use a sword formation? How did he use a flying sword? Isn't he a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect? Is this important?" Jin Kong did not answer directly. Instead, he looked at the distant sky and said coldly, "Indeed." Fong Lung stopped talking and also looked into the distance. The two of them did not dare to leave and only waited at the entrance of the main hall. After several hours, they saw Shuiyu spiritual master return. After crossing the entire country of Shi and heading to the west of Meng country, there was a huge mountain range. This mountain range was like a creeping dragon that stretched for thousands of miles. At the same time, this mountain range was also full of ups and downs. The mountains were completely different. Some places were swampy and muddy. Some places were bright with the fragrance of plum blossoms. Some places were shrouded in black fog, and some places were occupied by immortal clouds. In the middle of the mountain range, although the mountains were dangerous and rugged with strange rocks, the rocks were all sparkling and translucent, and the flowers were all shining. It was really a beautiful scene. This mountain range was the foundation of Meng country's famous Su Yin sect, Zhongxiu Mountain Range. In a mountain range, there was a mountain peak that was not very tall, but was rather quiet. White feathers spread out, and spiritual apes cried. Hidden by green vines, there was an extraordinary immortal's cave. It was afternoon, and the round sun had already moved to the west. The orange-red sunlight passed through the green wood and shone on the door of the immortal's cave. The colorful mottled light slowly slid on the door, and it was beautiful and really attracted people's attention. Unfortunately, although there were no noisy cicadas, the chirping of birds was also not surprising. There was no one who could easily come to this immortal's abode. Whoosh! A scarlet light streaked across the sky and suddenly disturbed this quiet mountain peak. It was a communication talisman that fell in front of the immortal's cave. When the communication talisman touched the door of the immortal's cave, the door raised a circle of light and then disappeared. The communication talisman also fell down and floated in the air. Not long after, the door of the immortal's cave was pushed open with a creak. A drooping boy poked his head out and blinked his sparkling eyes a few times. With a wave of his hand, the communication talisman fell into his hand. Then, the door creaked again and slowly closed, and the boy disappeared. Martial Ancestor! Martial Ancestor! The boy entered the Immortal's Cave. It was a huge valley, and the spiritual energy in the valley had condensed into mist. It floated in the air and filled the entire valley. There were countless spirit grasses, spirit trees, and even many celestial birds in the mist, making it look even more like an immortal's cave. The boy shouted as he flew. Only occasionally did he have to land on the ground. Along the way, there were many cultivators of different ages that looked at the boy with smiles on their faces. There were even a few that stopped and made way for the boy. "Thank you, Senior Martial Brother. Thank you, Martial Uncle." The boy's crisp voice echoed along the way. When he saw a stone wall floating in the air, the boy stopped. He bowed toward the stone wall and respectfully said, "Martial Ancestor, there's a communication talisman for you outside the Immortal's Cave." As the boy's voice fell, a layer of milky white mist flashed across the stone wall. When the mist dissipated, an irregular cave about 10 feet in size appeared on the stone wall. A voice came from the cave. "Bring it up." "Yes," the boy replied and flew to the top of the stone wall. He saw that this was a cave that was not very deep. There was a faint brilliance in the cave, which just happened to illuminate the entire cave. Inside the cave, there was an incomparable coolness that penetrated to the bones. The boy obediently walked inside and handed the communication talisman to a tall cultivator that was sitting cross-legged inside. This cultivator had an imposing appearance and looked amiable. It was Zhu Qinghe that Xiao Hua met at the Burial Flower Manor. At this moment, Zhu Qinghe still had an amiable expression. He took the communication talisman and said with a smile, "Hee, sure, your cultivation has improved again. Good. Martial Ancestor knows. Zhu, or has been in seclusion for another 20 days. Now, I have reached the peak of the 3rd level of the Qi refining realm. With a little more effort, I can enter the 4th level of the Qi refining realm." The boy heard the praise and replied with some exultation, "Not bad." Zhu Qinghe nodded. "You can endure hardships. I was right about you. However, the way of cultivation is to be steady. Don't be arrogant just because you have just reached the 3rd level of the Qi refining realm. The road ahead is long." "Yes, Zhu knows." The boy stuck out his tongue and hurriedly bowed. "And go." Zhu Qinghe didn't say much. He waved his hand and let the boy leave. Then he opened the communication talisman and immersed his divine thought into it. When he finished reading, his face unconsciously showed a strange expression. He whispered, "Hee, it's actually the sect leader who summoned the troops. You want me to go to the Sky Patrol City? Could it be that the first stage of the Dao Cultivator battle is going to end so soon? Will the cultivators of my Dao sect win? Or will the swordsmen of Huan country win?" Then Zhu Qinghe looked at the light outside the cave again and said self-deprecatingly, "The sect leader's order of confinement is also removed from today. It seems that the suspicion on me is now gone. The crime of instigating a Dao cultivator battle will not fall on me." As Zhu Qinghe spoke, a strange smile appeared on his face. He clapped his hands and shouted, "Come, take my order and go to the Jade Rain Palace. Bring me a copy of all the battle reports of the battle." "Yes, I understand." A loud voice sounded from outside the cave. Then a burly intermediate foundation establishment cultivator flew out of the cave and flew into the distance. In less than 2 hours, the disciple flew back and respectfully handed several jade slips to Zhu Qinghe. Zhu Qinghe narrowed his eyes and picked up a jade slip. He immersed his divine thought into it and seemed to be carefully reading it. However, after a while, Zhu Qinghe's face showed a trace of mockery. "Humph, the Golden Core cultivators in this battle are all pigs. Peng Dai is even more useless. The entire battle dispatch is a mess." Then Zhu Qinghe threw the jade slip and sneered. "There's no need to read it in the future. The Dao sect will lose this battle. The hundreds of thousands of cultivators will be forced to the outskirts of the Sky Patrol City by the sword cultivators. No wonder the sect leader ordered the troops. The Shuiyu spiritual master of the Sky Patrol City may not be able to hold on, right? Zhu Qinghe looked at the few jade slips scattered on the ground and closed his eyes to meditate. However, after a few minutes, Zhu Qinghe waved his hand and another jade slip appeared in his hand. He murmured, "I wonder who the opponent of the sword cultivators is this time." However, before he could finish speaking, he exclaimed, "Tu Hong, Quan Jinshan, killed nearly 30,000 swordsmen and dozens of illusory sword cultivators? The Sky Patrol City has such a great talent. How can they lose?" Xiaohua. Then, Zhu Qinghe looked as if he had seen a ghost. He was even more shocked than when he saw Tu Hong's battle achievements. He jumped up from the ground and shouted in disbelief, "This guy, didn't he die in the ink-black forest long ago?" Chapter 2570. That's right, it's Xiaohua from the Imperial Thunder Sect. Zhu Qinghe checked again, and the shock on his face did not disappear. The first team of the Imperial Thunder Sect, the first meritorious member of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Oh, he was sent to the spiritual stone mine of Mount Quanjin, killed by a swordsman? Seeing this, Zhu Qinghe did not know why, but he let out a long sigh. Phew! This guy, how did he escape? That year, I saw him being struck by the flying sword of immortal Ming Jian with my own eyes. Zhu Qinghe suddenly realized, but I only saw him being struck. Although he was definitely dead, but I didn't see him die. Could it be that he had another adventure? But fortunately, he died at Mount Quanjin or else. Thinking of this, Zhu Qinghe suddenly looked at the other jade slips that were scattered around, but there was a flash of fear in his eyes. He could not wait any longer, and all the jade slips fell into his hands, and he immediately immersed his divine thought into them. Sure enough, in just a moment, Zhu Qinghe's face turned ashen, and he shouted in disbelief, "Mount Quanjin's spirit Howler Ray!" He, in the first team of the Imperial Thunder Sect, actually came back to life. How is this possible? Then, he immersed his divine thought into all the jade slips again and looked through them carefully. He did not see any news about Xiaohua. Then he carefully kept the jade slips. Zhu Qinghe stood there quietly, and for a good while he suddenly moved, and his figure flew out of the cave. He did not have time to seal the cave, and his figure flew out of the immortal cave like a meteor and rushed into a place in the Zhongxiu mountain range and disappeared. North of the Sky Patrol City, in the sky, dark clouds covered the sky tightly. Although the dark clouds were extremely heavy, there was no lightning, nor was there any snow. But, faintly, there was a sound of thunder coming from afar. The sound of thunder was very ear-piercing, as if it was under the dark clouds. When the sound of thunder approached, another figure flashed across the sky. His speed was even faster than a shooting star as he dashed across the sky and scattered the dark clouds. What was left behind this figure were not only scattered clouds, but also the sound of thunder that reverberated between the clouds. This person was naturally Xiaohua. After Xiaohua left the Sky Patrol City, he immediately flew towards the northeast, and when he was out of the sight of the city guards, he immediately urged the thunder travel and flew straight to the north. Although Shuiyu Dao Master immediately flew out of Sky Patrol City when he received the report from the city guards, his initial direction was wrong. Moreover, his flying speed was not much faster than Xiaohua's. How could he catch up with Xiaohua? He was destined to return empty-handed. However, the pitiful Xiaohua still didn't know that he had been exposed by the Shuiyu sage of the Sky Patrol City. He was still flying around freely. Activating his magic power, Xiaohua pushed Imperial Lightning travel to its limits. A feeling of freedom filled Xiaohua's body and mind. Every pore on his body was filled with joy. It was as if cruising between heaven and earth, breaking away from all the shackles, was the life he should have. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and the primordial spirit in the space was carefully comprehending the primordial spirit sword manipulation technique in Qin Jin's memory. This secret technique was used by sword cultivators to transform into swords, so it was naturally difficult to understand, and there were many secrets that were passed down orally by sword cultivators. Although Xiao Hua had obtained it for a long time, his progress was still very slow. However, Xiao Hua did not panic at all. If he could comprehend it in a short period of time, he would doubt the authenticity of this secret technique. It was precisely because it was difficult to comprehend that he felt at ease. It was fine if he did not make a breakthrough in this secret technique, but once he did, it would definitely be of great benefit to his cultivation. After being free for more than 10 days, when dawn came, a ray of sunlight shot out from the ground, and in an instant, the whole world was lit up. Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and a mouthful of grand essence entered his mouth. But when he closed his mouth and swallowed, his gaze froze. In front of him, a purple color dyed the heaven and earth. That purple color was so pure and so alluring, like a kind of flashing glass. It instantly attracted Xiao Hua's gaze and directly penetrated into his eyes and then into his mind. Purple jasmine flower. Xiao Hua was practically moaning as he swallowed with difficulty. His throat felt like it was dry land. The purple color in front of him flowed like velvet, gorgeous like splashes of color, and also seemed to be purple flames dancing, emitting a flirtatious charm, throwing away heaven and earth. Seeing the purple jasmine flower, Xiao Hua naturally knew that it was the location of the sword tomb, and he did not lose his direction. When the sun that flashed across the dawn rain continent fell to the left of Xiao Hua, the purple jasmine flower blotted out the sky and covered the earth. He saw that this was a kind of spiritual grass that was about 3 feet tall, and on the purple background, there were traces of blood-red roots that stubbornly spat out from the dried-up layer of ice. From the root upwards, the dense blood-red threads gradually rubbed into the purple color until it was purified into a purple branch. On this 2 feet long, pure purple branch, there were purple flower petals that were only the size of a grain of rice. These flower petals were hollow, and there was no stamen. All the flower petals seemed to be wrapped together, as if they had never opened before. What was special was that this purple flower petal was unusually sharp at the top and oval at the bottom, like a purple teardrop falling down. If it was just a stalk of purple jasmine flower, he would not feel that it was very beautiful, and it would not even attract people's attention. But hundreds of thousands, millions of purple jasmine flowers suddenly covered the entire snowy plains, covering Xiao Hua's field of vision. What was even more unusual was that when the afterglow of the setting west sprinkled on the flower petals, that stunning purple color mixed with mournful blood red, truly filling the entire heaven and earth with sorrow. Xiao Hua's heart suddenly gave birth to a burst of sadness. Looking at the rising and falling waves of purple flower petals under the gentle breeze, he secretly said, "For 10,000 years, for 100,000 years, I don't know how many cultivators and swordsmen have been buried here, and I don't know how much blood has been spilled here. Every stalk of purple jasmine flower is most likely the illusion of a living person, and every tiny petal is most likely a drop of their blood. Even though they have fallen, their souls are unyielding. Even though they have fallen, their hearts and eyes are open. But unfortunately, what they saw was not light. They could only see frost. They could only see blood. They could only year after year, day after day, they could only watch the battle between swordsmen and cultivators." After lamenting for a moment, Xiao Hua calmed his heart and secretly said, "The Sword Tomb is one of the 10 most dangerous places in the country of Shi. Before I entered the Imperial Thunder sect, I had already heard of it, but I didn't expect the scenery here to be so magnificent. However, the magnificence is only on the surface. The endless danger is still on the inside. Just like this battle, even though I am lamenting those who deserve to die, I cannot be lenient in the slightest. Since I am unwilling to become a stalk of purple jasmine flower in this sword tomb, I can only let others do it. Perhaps after a few days, the sword tomb will add another dead soul. Xiao Hua released his Buddhist sense, and it gradually extended into the depths of the sword tomb like a tentacle. Precisely, when his Buddhist sense passed through these purple jasmine flowers, the sword tomb gradually gave birth to a kind of sharp feeling, as if it wanted to cut his Buddhist sense apart. That kind of indescribable piercing pain transmitted over, forcing Xiao Hua to have no choice but to withdraw his Buddhist sense. Xiao Hua took a deep breath of the chilly and icy cold air. He knew that this place was still the edge of the sword tomb, and it was precisely the place where the violet jasmine flowers bloomed. If he went further in, he would surely arrive at the battlefield of sword cultivators and Dao cultivators. Not only were there numerous incomplete formations and sword formations from before, there were even numerous spatial rifts that had been created from the battles. These rifts were probably as numerous as the hairs on an ox, and it would be dangerous for anyone to go in. The snowy highlands have always been filled with water, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth has always been abundant. But here, faint golden chi seeps out from the air. In the depths of the sword tomb, there are broken flying swords, and those flying swords are mixed with the remnant souls of sword cultivators who died for them. Day and night, these flying swords wailed in grief amidst the broken sword intent, and are also nourished by golden chi. This is the tomb of flying swords. Not to mention the Dao sect cultivators. Even the sword cultivators of the Huan country wouldn't dare to rashly enter if they didn't have an extremely clear path. Xiao Hua glanced at it, but he didn't have any thoughts of going deeper into the sword tomb. With a wave of his hand, he took out the jade slip and immersed his divine sense into it to take a look. He smiled and said, "This young master wants to make some contributions to the sword tomb, so I'll plant a purple jasmine flower." After he finished speaking, he very carefully identified the direction and flew along the edge of the purple jasmine flower toward a slightly higher mountain. After flying for an hour, night had already arrived. Xiao Hua landed on the ground and looked around. Although this place was slightly higher than the other places, the purple jasmine flowers were still everywhere. Coincidentally, there was a small protrusion in the middle of the purple jasmine flowers, which seemed to be a large boulder. Xiao Hua strolled over, and along the way, several purple jasmine flowers brushed past his Taoist robe. "This place is great." Xiao Hua floated up and sat on the boulder. He looked around and closed his eyes to regulate his breathing. The night gradually dispersed, and the entire world was shrouded in darkness. The originally purple sword tomb was now emitting bursts of blood red. This blood red replaced the allure of the purple during the day, and everything under the pitch-black night sky was dyed red. Oh, purple. At night, it becomes the color of blood? Xiao Hua extended his hand into the sea of blood and was rather puzzled. However, as far as his eyes could see, his surroundings were blood red. Moreover, that blood red was speckled, and it was several times weaker than the brilliance of the fireflies. When Xiao Hua's gaze stopped at the purple jasmine flower beside him, he understood. The purple color of the purple jasmine flower during the day was its petals, and these purple petals were wrapped up. Now that it was night, the purple color of the petals could no longer be seen clearly. However, the blood-red color of the petals could still be seen. This blood-red color contained a brilliance, and naturally, during the night, it was the same as the petals. Thus, this part of the world was dyed in the color of blood. Magnificent, sorrowful. Xiao Hua sighed with emotion for a moment, then closed his eyes to regulate his breathing. Another hour later, the night was already as dark as ink. The night wind blew over the sword catacomb, and the purple jasmine flowers swayed along with the night wind. The color of blood was even more like a rippling sea of blood. Xiao Hua's body flickered with a faint, almost invisible protective golden light. He was like a small boat in the sea of blood, drifting indeterminately. Chapter 2571. There seemed to be a breeze around Xiao Hua. This breeze was different from the sound of ordinary wind, and it was also completely different from the night wind. The night wind only blew the purple jasmine flowers and raised the blood waves of the sword mound. It couldn't shake Xiao Hua's protective brilliance, and it couldn't even stir Xiao Hua's tranquil state of mind. However, this breeze quietly arrived and very strangely blew into the light, protecting his body. Xiao Hua's heart set off ripples. He suddenly opened his eyes, and a rather desolate feeling came from his skin. This was something Xiao Hua normally couldn't sense. Could it be that there's something else in this sword mound? Xiao Hua's eyes were like stars. He coldly swept his left side and then closed them again. Open. Xiao Hua gathered his Buddhist consciousness between his eyes. There was a mark of the previous Dharma eye. Generally, soul threads would pass through here. Although the delirium Dharma eye was useful, Xiao Hua basically didn't know how to control it, so he always wanted to use it to control the Dharma eye. But this time, Xiao Hua was disappointed. The Dharma eye mark didn't open because of his mantra. Instead, there was a piercing pain coming from his glabella. Forget it. I'm afraid that this young master's luck has been used up. Xiao Hua shook his head. It seems that this Dharma eye mark isn't easy to control. I'll wait until I have a corresponding secret technique. Thinking, Xiao Hua opened his left hand and waited for the delirium Dharma eye to open. Sure enough, threads of blue brilliance mixed with silver brilliance drifted around him. It was very obvious. Furthermore, there were strands of cotton-like green brilliance floating around his body. Xiao Hua was already familiar with the blue and silver brilliance. It should be the water and metal attribute spiritual energy of heaven and earth. But that green brilliance wasn't the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It seemed to be gathering with a purpose. Xiao Hua even looked into the distance and saw that there was actually even more green brilliance gathering around him. Seeing this, Xiao Hua already understood in his heart. No wonder Guyu said that this place wasn't suitable for cultivators to come. Not only is the metal attribute spiritual energy of heaven and earth somewhat troublesome, but the swordsman's vengeful soul also has an impact on cultivators' cultivation. If it wasn't this young master's fault, if it was someone else, their cultivation would be disturbed and their cultivation would also be damaged. Finished thinking, Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and was about to slap his forehead. Just as he was about to release the Buddha's Saraira, his heart moved and his mind entered the mysterious dark clouds. At this moment, Little White's soul was dancing rhythmically, bringing Xiao Hua's trace of primordial spirit to the top of the sky. Little White, I'll take you out to eat something, Xiao Hua said in his heart. Then, the soul thread wrapped around Little White. Although Little White heard Xiao Hua's voice, it didn't open its eyes. Even the moment the soul thread touched its body, Little White's soul slightly trembled. However, when the soul thread flickered, the rhythmic soul power sent Little White out of its body. Roar! Little White immediately raised its head and let out a weak dragon roar. Immediately, its entire soul body danced like the sky. This dance was very normal in the sky, but in this night's sky, it was completely different. Following the rhythm of the undulations, circles of undulations slowly rippled out with Little White's soul body as the center. An indescribable suction force was borne along with the undulations, spreading far away. Obviously, the wandering souls that were attracted by Xiao Hua were immediately frightened when they encountered the undulations. A kind of instinct was born from the wandering souls, just like a drowning person, trying their best to escape from the undulations. However, the undulations were like a firm fishing hook. Once it caught a fish or shrimp, no matter how big or small it was, it wouldn't let it go. Those strands of green brilliance of different sizes followed the suction force and entered Little White's soul body. Every time a strand of wandering soul entered, Little White's soul body would emit a faint light. This little white dragon is different from the fire ape's soul. It doesn't need to devour, and can directly use its soul body to devour wandering souls. This seems to be somewhat similar to my immortal body bestowment technique. Seeing that little white's soul body was becoming brighter and brighter, and was beginning to condense bit by bit, Xiao Hua was relieved. He continued to sit cross-legged and began his own homework, letting little white dragon nourish itself here. The night was very long, and the night was also very short. When Xiao Hua opened his eyes again, the horizon was already slightly bright. Little white dragon seemed to be a little tired as it sat in the air. After a night of nourishment, there weren't any obvious changes, but the condensation of the soul body could be felt even when Xiao Hua released the soul strands. More than 10 days passed in a row. Xiao Hua rarely had a quiet time to cultivate. Other than releasing little white dragon's soul body at night, he had been cultivating quietly. From time to time, he would take out the invisible golden sword and use it according to the sword technique in Qin Jin's memory. Although this invisible sword wasn't as marvelous as Qin Jin's, it had the advantage of being invisible. Xiao Hua had the experience of using the execution dream, so using this invisible sword was very easy. Of course, in Xiao Hua's space, there was a jade slip given to him by the arrogant 10th layer Qi refining disciple Yutong when he sneaked out of the Huanhua sect. Xiao Hua also took it out when he was cultivating. Sure enough, the layer of mysterious restriction gradually disappeared not long after the jade slip was taken out. However, when Xiao Hua's divine sense swept through it, he didn't find anything special. There was only a location, a special symbol, and a simple technique. Is this guy sending this young master to his death? Xiao Hua looked at it, then very carelessly threw it into the space. This was because he noticed an extremely special phenomenon. This was the Ganoderma horse. Before Xiao Hua sent the Ganoderma horse into the space, the Ganoderma horse was somewhat injured. However, it still maintained the appearance of a Ganoderma horse. After Xiao Hua sent it into the space, the Ganoderma horse actually reverted back to the appearance of a 10,000-year-old Lingji. It could no longer transform. Could it be that I should first go to the thunder that Dyer encountered? Although the Ganoderma horse didn't encounter any heavenly thunder when it reverted back to its original state, Xiao Hua still had some understanding in his heart. Perhaps this young master's space, the rules are still a bit strange. Thinking about the growth of the spiritual grass in his space, Xiao Hua could only bitterly smile. He returned his thoughts to cultivation. His current realm was only foundation establishment. The distance from touching the heavenly Tao was really too far. What was the use of thinking too much? Next, Xiao Hua was happy again. He finally found a secret technique to use the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords at the same time. That mysterious sword cultivation secret technique nearly doubled the speed of the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords. It far exceeded Xiao Hua's previous expectations. When Xiao Hua was investigating Zhong Haoren that day, because of the critical moment, Xiao Hua didn't have any other divine ability to use. He could only use the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords that he had just comprehended a little. The results were surprisingly good. Not only was the speed astonishing, but the strength also increased. It actually injured Yun Zhaocheng's flame dragon body, forcing Yun Zhaocheng to not dare to fight and flee in panic. This is just two butterflies fluttering in the air. Xiao Hua looked at the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords that were like two cheerful butterflies attached to each other and pulling each other along. They fluttered among the purple flowers. He couldn't help but think, if the 9 sword pills were repaired, then 9 stars would transit the sun. Then what kind of momentum would that be? Those are the flying swords of Li Xiubai, the so-called sword immortal. I reckon that even a nascent soul cultivator might not be able to block one of them. When he thought of being able to kill a nascent soul cultivator in the future, Xiao Hua's mouth couldn't close. Although he really didn't know how long this future was, if there was a path of hope, would he still be afraid of thorns and dangers? Could it be that Marshal Kuen's jade slip is wrong? When Xiao Hua calmed down, he frowned and looked into the distance. Right now, the swordsmen and cultivators must be fighting a bloody battle to the death. Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao aside, what about Fairy Hongxia? If I can stay by her side and block some wind and rain for her, that's also good. As he thought, Xiao Hua's gaze landed on the purple flowers again. Could it be that the feelings of cultivators are like this? Although there is mutual affection, there are also separation and reunion involuntarily. If two people have feelings for each other for a long time, why would they be together every day and night? However, the words were so pleasant to hear. Putting aside the dangers of the Xiaoyu continent, without each other's protection, it was extremely easy to fall. It was inevitable that regret would arise in his heart. Even if there was no danger, a person's heart was fickle. It was hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be any changes. Dui Chiming loved Chui Hongshun wholeheartedly, but when others obstructed her, it was inevitable that her heart would be obstructed. If I hadn't killed Tu Hong and pushed both of them into the middle foundation establishment stage, allowing her to see the foundation of my myriad Thunder Valley, I'm afraid that Dui Chiming, who had experienced this unforeseen event, would have some thoughts in her heart. Of course, these are all my wild guesses. Perhaps Dui Chiming is as loyal as Chui Hongshen, just like Fairy Hongxia in the past. I was only a Qi refinement cultivator, but she liked me so much that she didn't hide her preferences in front of everyone in the Feather Immortal Assembly. With such a wife, what else can I ask for in this life? The corners of Xiao Hua's mouth secretly revealed a trace of a smile. And Shui the most. At this moment, Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows, and his figure flew up from the big rock. As his figure gradually flew into the sky, his appearance and figure gradually changed, revealing the appearance of a martial koan. In the northeast direction, two faint figures appeared on the horizon. When they got closer, two divine senses swept over. As soon as the divine senses swept over Xiao Hua, they immediately locked onto him. After circling around for a while, they withdrew. Xiao Hua quietly stood in midair. He didn't release his divine senses, only releasing his Buddhist sense to scan the area around him for fear that the newcomers would have some hidden tricks. However, when the two people flew closer, Xiao Hua could already see clearly that both of them were tall and thin. However, one was an old man with white hair and a beard, and the other was a cultivator dressed in camouflage robes. Xiao Hua frowned slightly, but then his brows relaxed. The old man with white hair and a beard was in the early gold course stage. When Xiao Hua was being chased by Reverend Jingyu, he had used his Buddhist sense to see him. He was the disciple who delivered the flying boat to Reverend Jingyu. Chapter 2572. That's Hu Guanqing. Xiao Hua could see the arrogance on Hu Guanqing's face from afar. He could imagine how Hu Guanqing had treated Zhong Tianyao back in Zhongling Mountain Village. He had forced a golden core cultivator to hand over the materials he used to repair his ancestral artifact. How could an ordinary cultivator be so ruthless? However, although Hu Guanqing's arrogance could not be concealed, he was doing his best to conceal it. There was a trace of respect on his face, and he even flew slightly slower than the Mi Yao cultivator, as if he was letting the latter go first. Strange, where did this Mi Yao cultivator come from? How could he make Hu Guanqing act so modestly? Could he be a nascent soul senior? Xiao Hua muttered to himself as he looked at the Mi Yao cultivator. His heart trembled, but this thought only flashed through his mind. Did a nascent soul senior need to wear a Mi Yao cultivator? However, Xiao Hua suddenly complained in his heart. Damn it, Hu Guanqing brought this person here. Even if he's wearing a Mi Yao cultivator, who knows if Marshal Kuan has come in contact with him? It's fine if he doesn't know him, but if he does, how am I supposed to talk to him? Forget it. A trace of ruthlessness flashed through Xiao Hua's eyes. Who cares who he is? Since he's here, he can't blame me for being ruthless. I can't be bothered to say anything to them. I'll just kill them all. Thus, Xiao Hua rushed towards the two. The Dream Executioner and the Mountain Splitter were already in his mouth, ready to kill them in one blow. However, just as Xiao Hua was about to attack, Hu Guanqing suddenly flew a few feet forward and transmitted his voice. Marshal Kun, don't put on a poker face. This is an important person. Hurry up and welcome him. Don't be rude. Yes. When Xiao Hua heard this, he hurriedly put away the two flying swords and replied. The ruthlessness on his face was replaced by a smile, and he stepped forward respectfully. Putting on an act, Xiao Hua liked it the most. Being respectful was his specialty. How could he not join in the fun? Seeing how obedient Marshal Kun was, Hu Guanju was also slightly stunned. However, he was also very happy. With a smile on his face, he said in a clear voice, Marshal Kun, why aren't you coming over to greet the Alliance leader's envoy? Alliance Master? Xiao Hua was stunned. For a moment, he didn't even know which Alliance Master or which envoy it was. However, he quickly lowered his head and bowed in midair. Imperial Thunder Sect's Marshal Kun greets the envoy. All right, forget it. The emissary's face seemed to show a smile like a spring breeze. He sped up and flew in front of Xiao Hua. He very gently helped Xiao Hua up and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Kun is too polite. I've heard of fellow Taoist name long ago, but I never had the chance to meet you. Now that I've seen you today, you're indeed a dragon among men. You're exactly the person the Alliance Master values. Who is this? He only said that he was an emissary and didn't even mention his name. He kept calling him Alliance Master. Which Alliance Master is this Alliance Master? Xiao Hua cursed inwardly, but he still humbly smiled apologetically and said, I am just a small gold core cultivator. How could I enter the Alliance Master's eyes? Only a cultivator with an outstanding cultivation like the envoy can be the Alliance Master's right-hand man. Ha ha ha, Marshal Kun. Oh, Marshal Kun, when I told you about the Alliance Master that day, you didn't believe me. You even laughed and scolded me for being a bluff. Now, you throw me aside as soon as you see the envoy. You're actually so intimate with the envoy. This is really beyond my expectations, Hu Guanfu said with a chuckle, as if to express his presence. However, Xiao Hua's heart thumped again. He knew that things weren't good. From Marshal Kun's jade slip, he saw that Marshal Kun had handed over the refining method of the Thunderbolt to Hu Guanfu here. He also learned that Hu Guanfu had the materials to repair the Grand Cosmos shifting token. That was why he came here to meet Hu Guanfu. Moreover, he also had the idea of attacking Hu Guanfu as soon as he saw him. He didn't think much about the relationship between the two of them. However, now that he heard Hu Guanfu's words, it seemed the two of them weren't as simple as he thought. There was actually a so-called Alliance Master and envoy involved. What exactly was going on? Fellow Taoist who has always been a man of his word. How can I take your words seriously? If I didn't see the envoy with my own eyes, how could I believe you? Marshal Kun said with a cold snort. Fellow Taoist Kun. The envoy clapped his hands and took out a triangular token from his storage bag. He handed it over and said with a smile, This is the Alliance Master's token. You can check it. No need, no need, Xiao Hua said as he stretched out his hand. He was very curious about who the Alliance Master was. However, just as his hand was about to touch the token, the envoy pulled his hand back and didn't allow him to touch it. At this moment, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He pondered whether or not he should snatch the item. However, this thought only flashed through his mind. Alliance leader, the leader of an alliance. He was probably more powerful than any cultivation sect. He couldn't even afford to offend a sect, so how could he dare to offend the leader of an alliance? He just wanted Hu Guanfu's materials to refine the Grand Cosmos shifting token. So what if he didn't take Hu Guanfu's life today? This Hu Guanfu is lucky, Xiao Hua thought and smiled awkwardly. He swept out his divine sense and immersed it into the token. Buzz! In Xiao Hua's divine sense, a mountain-like pressure came from the token. A large fall word flashed and appeared in Xiao Hua's mind. Damn it, this is too powerful. Xiao Hua was shocked and hurriedly withdrew his divine sense. His face was a little pale. Seeing Xiao Hua like this, a smile flashed across the envoy's face. He flipped his hand and put the token into his bag. He said, Fellow Taoist Kun, you have seen the token. Do you have any other questions? No, no. Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand and said, the Alliance Master's methods are indeed powerful. I can't compare. I really learned something. The envoy nodded with a smile and didn't say anything else. Xiao Hua glanced at Hu Guanfu, who had a complacent expression on his face, and said with a smile, Lord Envoy, I wonder why you came all the way here. Do you have any orders for me? Although Xiao Hua didn't seem to care too much about it. He felt as if he wanted to stretch out a small hand to his heart and pull out some secrets about Hu Guanju from this emissary's mouth. Unexpectedly, the envoy still smiled and shook his head. He said, I don't have anything to do. I just saw that the sword cultivators outside the Sky Patrol City were fighting with our cultivators. I found a job and came to take a look on behalf of the Alliance Master. What a coincidence. I came to the Sword Tomb because I met you. I thought, fellow Taoist Kuan is good, so I led you here, Hu Guanfu said with a smile. The key is that I heard fellow Taoist who mentioned fellow Taoist Kuan of the Imperial Thunder Sect. I admire him. The envoy seized the opportunity to flatter Marshal Kuan. Thank you for thinking so highly of me. Xiao Hua saw that the envoy was tight-lipped and knew that it was unlikely to get anything out of him. He said to Hu Guanfu, since fellow Taoist who has come to keep the appointment, have you prepared those things? Of course. Hu Guanfu didn't seem to suspect anything. He took out a storage bag from his sleeve and handed it to Xiao Hua. He said with a smile, the things you want are inside. Take a look. All right. Xiao Hua took the storage bag and looked inside with his divine consciousness. He saw that there were only sleeved jade slips and a lot of refining materials. There weren't any materials for refining the Grand Cosmos shifting token. After he took a look at the jade slips, he realized that the jade slips contained some refining secret techniques. One of the jade slips recorded the method to repair the Grand Cosmos shifting token. Damn it, I see. Xiao Hua cursed. It turned out that Marshal Kuan wanted to use the refining method of the Thunderbolt to exchange for the refining secret techniques and the method to repair the Grand Cosmos shifting token. He didn't want to exchange the materials for the Grand Cosmos shifting token. What should I do now? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. You have to take a good look at these secret techniques. There are some refining methods for flying Dharma artifacts that Master collected with great difficulty. Hu Guanfu said with a smile. Did you bring the things that Master wanted? Of course. Xiao Hua was also helpless. He stretched out his hand, took out a storage pouch that he had prepared a long time ago, and handed it over. Very good. A pleased look appeared on Hu Guanxin's face, but he then asked curiously, didn't you say that you've gathered some other materials? Why didn't you bring them? Xiao Hua understood that Hu Guanfu was talking about the materials for repairing the Grand Cosmos shifting token. He thought for a while and said awkwardly, I was under the 7 Extremes mountain range. However, I remember my agreement with fellow Hu Guanfu and came here in a hurry. I forgot those things in the Sky Patrol City Station. You, how could you be so careless? Hu Guanfu frowned. How could you not bring those things with you? Xiao Hua's face turned cold when he saw that Hu Guanfu was blaming him. Forget it. I'll go with you in a while. Hu Guanfu waved his hand. Master is very concerned about these things. You'd better bring them here as soon as possible. Xiao Hua was moved when Hu Guanfu mentioned Taoist Jingru. He was about to speak when Hu Guanfu seemed to have thought of something and transmitted his voice. That's right. About the matter I told you last time. Let's stop for the time being. That guy hid his strength too well. I didn't expect his cultivation to be so powerful. He actually... Cough, cough. I'm sure you've seen it too. He's made many contributions in the Tao Cultivator War. If you act rashly, you'll disrupt Master's plan. I've always wanted to send you a message talisman about this. However, this is a serious matter. It's better to tell you personally. Fellow Hu Guanfu, you're talking about. Xiao Hua's heart trembled. He seemed to have sensed something and asked deliberately. Hu Guanfu looked at him strangely. He smiled and transmitted his voice. Of course, it's about the Foundation establishment disciple of your Imperial Thunder Sect, Xiao Hua. So you've already forgotten about him. Haha, that's good too. I don't want to alert the enemy. So it's because of this guy. Xiao Hua understood at once. He had thought about it for a long time, but still couldn't figure it out. Today, he actually got the answer he never expected. Chapter 2573. Up until his death, Marshal Kuan did not tell Xiao Hua why he was so ruthless toward Xiao Hua. Marshal Kuan did not even mention anything about Kuan Fian. However, from Guanju's mouth, Xiao Hua had already heard clearly. It was definitely this fellow who had informed Marshal Kuan and wanted Marshal Kuan to kill him or snatch the incomplete Grand Universe shifting token from his hands. Xiao Hua could even feel from Hu Guanju's mouth that it was not necessarily immortal Jing Ru who had instructed Marshal Kuan to kill him, but Hu Guanju, who always liked to take credit from immortal Jing Ru, had asked Marshal Kuan to kill him. Xiao Hua could even vaguely guess that the person who had intercepted and killed the thunder-controlling sect disciples after the Feather Immortal Gathering was probably Hu Guanju. A hint of coldness flashed through the eyes of Xiao Hua, who had always been ruthless to his enemies. He forcefully suppressed his desire to kill Hu Guan'ai, and then pretended as if nothing had happened. He nodded and said, "This Kuan understands. Yes, Master has already instructed us not to interfere in this matter. He has his own ways." Hu Guanchen didn't notice anything at all, and instructed, "I understand." Xiao Hua asked again, "When will your master arrive?" "Now that we have reached the critical point of the war, I feel that the cultivators of my sect will suffer a great loss. We need the nascent soul masters to come to Century City as soon as possible." "Master? Huh?" Hu Guanju raised his eyebrows, and a trace of imperceptible surprise flashed across his eyes. He smiled and said, "My master is ready. He will immediately rush to Century City as soon as the sect leader gives the order. At that time, fellow Taoist Kuan will have the chance to meet my master and have him guide you on your refining skills." Yes, Xiao Hua said with a smile. "This Kuan admires your master's artifact refining skills. If this Kuan can obtain some pointers from him, this Kuan will definitely benefit greatly." Well said. Hu Guanju glanced at the emissary and opened his mouth slightly, as if he was transmitting his voice. The emissary nodded, but his face was covered in fog. "Let's go, fellow Kuan." Hu Guanju waved his hand and said, "The emissary and I will accompany you back to Century City. We will wait outside the city. Take out your storage bag." "All right." Xiao Hua nodded. He flew up and said with a smile, "I, Kuan, will lead the way. Fellow Taoist Kuan, please." The emissary smiled and raised his hand. His figure also flew up and landed on Xiao Hua's right. Hu Guanju also flew up and landed on Xiao Hua's left. "Oh, by the way, fellow Taoist Kuan." As Xiao Hua flew for a while, Hu Guanma suddenly remembered something. He patted his storage bag and said, "Before I left, my master asked me to bring you a magic treasure. It's what you wanted when you went there. It's just that my master hasn't been able to successfully refine it until the beginning of this year. I'll give it to fellow Taoists now." "Hee. Many thanks to your honorable master." Xiao Hua was happy. He didn't think that he would be able to obtain a transcendent treasure before he left. So how could he not be happy? Still, he said, "That old man is really..." However, before he could finish speaking, he saw Hu Guanqing take out something from his storage bag. It was not a Dharma treasure, but a spirit talisman with extremely powerful dharmic powers. Xiao Hua was very familiar with the magical power fluctuations of this spiritual talisman. Wasn't it the protective spiritual talisman that Li Chengxiu had used that day? The hand of nascent soul? This is bad. How did this guy discover this young master's flaw? Seeing this, Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. He saw that Hu Guanju had been waiting for this moment. As soon as the hand of nascent soul took out his storage bag, he immediately activated his dharmic powers. A hurricane was born from the spirit talisman, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth within 1,000 feet rushed into the spirit talisman. The spirit talisman borrowed the force of the wind and suddenly expanded. In an instant, it was several feet in size. Moreover, the hand of nascent soul flashed with brilliance, and a powerful restrictive force appeared spontaneously. Looking at the emissary to Xiao Hua's right, he waved his hand. An array of golden light flew out from his hand. A small palm-sized pagoda flew into the air. The small pagoda's brilliance was unusually dazzling. When the spiritual chi of heaven and earth surged by the hand of nascent soul swept past the small pagoda, half of it was absorbed by the small pagoda. Strands of jade were born from the edges of the small pagoda, and a suction force that was not inferior to the restrictive force of the hand of nascent soul was born from the bottom of the small pagoda. The force rotated and was about to envelop Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was shocked and immediately moved. His figure suddenly flashed, and almost an afterimage appeared behind him. His figure was as strange as the wind. Hu Guanxing had deliberately distanced himself from him by several feet, but in the blink of an eye, he was already closing in on him. Wu! Seeing that he was getting closer, Xiao Hua raised his hand, took out the wishful staff, and swung it at Hu Guanxing's head. Xiao Hua's wind escape was too fast. Although Hu Guanxing made the first move, Xiao Hua arrived first. Before Hu Guanxing's hand of nascent soul could move, the wishful staff was already in front of Hu Guanxing's eyes. Hu Guanxing had no choice but to activate the talisman with one hand and slap his forehead with the other. A dazzling sword light flew out and met Xiao Hua's wishful staff head-on. With a cracking sound, the flying sword was hit by the wishful staff, and a crack appeared on the flying sword. Hiss! Hu Guanxing's face flushed red. His figure quickly retreated. He wanted to escape from Xiao Hua's wishful staff. Attack! Xiao Hua shouted. Instead of advancing, he retreated and flew toward the emissary who had taken out his magic treasure. What is he doing? Hu Guanxing was slightly taken aback, but his heart still relaxed. He hurriedly activated the hand of nascent soul. However, just as Xiao Hua turned to attack the emissary, two green and red flying swords flew out of Xiao Hua's mouth, one in front and one behind. They chased each other and pierced toward Hu Guanxing with incomparable speed. Flying swords? Hu Guanxing didn't have time to retrieve his flying swords. When he saw Xiao Hua attack with flying swords, he couldn't help but be taken aback. But when he saw the two flying swords piercing toward him at an unimaginable speed, Hu Guanxing was scared out of his wits. Hu Guanxing only had this thought in his mind. He didn't even have time to activate the talisman. However, the distance between him and Xiao Hua was too close, and the flying speed of the Dream Executioner and the Mountain Splitter was too fast. In addition, the strength of the two flying swords was too great. Just as the thought of dodging arose in Hu Guanxing's mind, the two swords had already pierced his body. With a PU, the Dream Executioner was the first to strike. Hu Guanxing's protective golden light flashed and was pierced through by the Dream Executioner. Woo! With a flash of brilliance, the Dream Executioner was blocked by Hu Guanxing's protective magic treasure. Although the huge impact made Hu Guanxing feel incomparable pain, the Dream Executioner was blocked in the end. Hiss! Immediately after, the second sword light arrived. The power of the Mountain Splitter increased by a lot under the Dream Executioner's cooperation. The flashing protective magic treasure only resisted for a few breaths of time before the light was extinguished and the Mountain Splitter pierced through. Pooh! With a muffled sound, the Mountain Splitter pierced through Hu Guanxing's chest and came out from his back. Hu Guanxing, an early golden core cultivator, was so easily killed by Xiao Hua. The swollen nascent soul hand fell along with Hu Guanxing's corpse. Like a deflated bubble, it rapidly shrank and finally turned into a talisman that fell beside the corpse. Xiao Hua turned around and attacked the envoy. He didn't even check on Hu Guanxing. Since he attacked, he absolutely couldn't let the envoy escape, even if he was the Marshal Kuan. Who would have thought that the thing that made Xiao Hua's soul fly out of his body would happen? Seeing Xiao Hua raise the wishful staff, the enchanting envoy's eyes suddenly widened. A brilliant brilliance flashed through his eyes. Then he cried out in extreme shock, "Who are you?" You actually know the transfiguration technique? As he spoke, the shocked envoy waved his hand. The small pagoda quickly fell, and his figure strangely floated up. Xiao Hua's speed was extremely fast, but the envoy's small pagoda had already been raised and blocked in front of the wishful staff. The suction force of the small pagoda was amazing. Xiao Hua's body shook continuously, and the brilliance of his protective body flashed. But when the wishful staff hit the suction force, the small pagoda flew out. At this time, the envoy's figure was like smoke and also like a ghost. He only flashed a few times in the air and chased after the small pagoda. He grabbed the small pagoda in his hand, and then, without looking back, a trace of green smoke appeared around his body, and his whole figure disappeared. "Where do you think you're going?" Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. This was the first time he had seen such a strange flying technique. Moreover, this emissary had actually seen through his disguise technique with a single sentence. How could this not surprise him? How could he let the envoy escape? Xiao Hua yelled, his figure flashed, and a stick hit the place where the emissary disappeared. Unfortunately, the stick hit empty air, and not even a hair of the envoy was hit. Xiao Hua was anxious. His figure also flashed and disappeared, as if he was chasing after the envoy. However, in a moment, Xiao Hua's figure appeared one zhang away, and his face was full of confusion and anxiety. Who is this envoy? He actually has such a powerful flying technique. Xiao Hua was really anxious. If I had known this earlier, I would have killed this person first, or at least not reveal any trace of the wishful staff. However, now that things had come to this, where was there a special medicine for regret? Even if Xiao Hua opened his illusion breaker eyes and looked around, he still could not find the whereabouts of the envoy. Xiao Hua snorted coldly, and his heart was still unwilling. He felt that his illusion breaker eyes should be able to see where the envoy fled, but he did not know how to check. Even if you know that I am pretending to be Marshal Kuan, so what? You don't know who I am. Xiao Hua said coldly. This envoy did not go to the Dao Sword battlefield to help, but ran here. There must be something shameful. This so-called alliance leader was probably something that couldn't be seen in public. I'm not even afraid of a nascent soul cultivator, so why would I be afraid of some bullshit alliance leader? Thinking, Xiao Hua flew back to the place where he had killed Hu Guanmu. With a wave of his hand, the intact, nascent soul hand talisman fell into his hand. Xiao Hua looked at it and carefully stored it in his space. Chapter 2574. After that, Xiao Hua picked up Hu Guanda's storage bag and checked it. Sure enough, not only were there materials to repair the Grand Cosmos shifting token, there were also materials to refine the Thunderbolt, and many other precious materials for refining tools. I didn't come here in vain. Xiao Hua snorted coldly and pointed his finger. A wisp of true samadhi fire fell on the corpse, burning it until only a golden core was left. Looking at the golden core that was only the size of a grain of rice, Xiao Hua sneered. You're just an early-stage golden core cultivator, yet you dare to scheme against a middle-stage golden core cultivator. You're really tired of living. However, how did this guy discover my flaw? This was something that Xiao Hua couldn't figure out. Xiao Hua originally wanted to call Goldie out of the space, but he looked around vigilantly and was still not at ease. With a wave of his hand, he sent the golden core into the space. What made Xiao Hua flabbergasted was that Goldie, who had always liked golden cores, sniffed this little golden core and didn't pay attention to it at all. It turned its head to the side. Oh my God, it doesn't even care about golden cores. Xiao Hua smacked his lips in thought. However, the quality of this Hu Guanda's golden core is indeed not good. No wonder Goldie doesn't like it. Don't waste it, Xiao Hua thought as he sent the golden core to the duck floating on the water. The duck opened its tender yellow beak and swallowed the golden core into its stomach without even opening its eyes. After Xiao Hua looked around and found no flaws, he turned around and wanted to fly away. However, just as he turned around, His gaze fell on a stone that was piled up in the shape of the word Quan, 100 feet away. Eh, this is... Xiao Hua's eyes lit up as he suddenly thought of something. He hurriedly waved his hand and took out a jade slip from a space. He immersed his divine sense in it and looked at it for a moment. Then, he flew to the stone and grabbed it. A layer of silver light appeared on the stone, and a palm-sized square cauldron appeared. Strange. Xiao Hua pinched his chin and said curiously, "There are strange things every year, but there are especially many this year. This thing, why is it still here? It seems dozens of years have passed, right?" After looking at the small cauldron overflowing with silver light for a moment, Xiao Hua tried to throw the jade slip into it. Buzz! The small cauldron began to emit a brilliance, and a wave of faint smoke emerged from the jade slip. Soon after, the jade slip flew out of the small cauldron, and the small cauldron once again turned into a silver light that landed on the stone and slowly disappeared. Looking at the jade slip that was emitting smoke, Xiao Hua immersed his divine sense into it. A moment later, Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a hint of understanding. He looked inside the sword tomb and muttered to himself, "What is this jade system trying to sell?" Young Master remembered that he had evil intentions towards Young Master that day. Why did he come to the sword tomb? Since I'm here, I'll go take a look. What kind of waves can a Foundation establishment brat cause? Besides, my whereabouts have already been exposed by that bullshit emissary. If I don't go out and hide, should I go back to Sky Patrol City and walk right into their trap? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua's figure moved like lightning and flew in the direction indicated by the jade slip. After Xiao Hua's figure disappeared for an hour, a wave of fluctuation flashed in midair, and Xiao Hua's figure appeared there again. His divine sense once again swept across the area within 100 miles. Damn it, could it be that the emissary really left? Xiao Hua actually made a feint and returned here again to see if the emissary was hiding somewhere and not escaping at that time. Seeing that there was nothing wrong, Xiao Hua was helpless and could only resentfully fly up again. After more than half a day, a faint figure appeared beside a low-lying mountain rock a few miles away from here. It was the emissary who had disappeared. However, at this time, a trace of horror appeared on the emissary's pale face. I really didn't expect this. This guy actually knows the transfiguration technique. Moreover, the thing in his hand seems to be a demonic artifact. This demonic artifact is different from ordinary demonic artifacts. It can actually send the demons subduing pagoda flying. This guy, who is he? However, since he can kill Marshal Kuan, he must have some grudges with the thunder-controlling sect. He might even have a grudge with a Dao sect cultivator. The emissary's eyes turned. Yes, he used a sword cultivator's secret technique to kill Hu Guanmu, but his flying sword seems to be different from a sword cultivator's. Maybe he's a bird cultivator or a beast cultivator? It seems that only Huan country's swordsmen are active in the vicinity of the sword catacomb. This guy is undoubtedly a swordsman. The emissary was still in a state of shock. Seeing that there was no more movement nearby, he quietly flew up, still thinking to himself. But as he flew, his body suddenly shook again, as if he had thought of something. That's not right. If this guy is a swordsman, why is he waiting here alone for Hu Guanmu? Besides, why does he need so many of Hu Guanmu's refining materials? The most inconceivable thing is that when I saw this guy, I already used my divine sense to investigate him. He is undoubtedly a Dao sect cultivator. When did the transfiguration technique reach such a miraculous level? Who on earth is this guy? The emissary was really scratching his head. This won't do. Such a strange cultivator, no matter if he's a cultivator or a sword cultivator, will be detrimental to my heavenly devil sect and my sect master. I must report this to Lord Sect Master. As he spoke, the emissary got rid of the Mimi. It was a young cultivator dressed in an ordinary Taoist robe, with delicate features and an extremely refined expression on his face. He looked like he was in his 20s. Who was this emissary? Wasn't he the deputy sect Master Zhang Zhihao that heavenly devil sect Zhang Qingxiao had personally appointed? After Zhang Zhihao thought about it, his figure immediately turned into green smoke and disappeared. After waiting for an hour, he flew out from a stone crack in a snowy plain. His originally pale face was even more bloodless. Then, Zhang Zhihao looked at the sky and said in a low voice, Xiong Huasong sent a message saying that he found clues to the grand universe shifting token. Damn it, isn't it that Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect? Wouldn't it be fine if he directly killed him and took the token? Why did he have to make this trip? This Xiao Hua is also the reincarnation of a praying mantis. He should have died in the netherworld. Why is he still alive now? If that Zhu Qinghe knew, wouldn't he desperately cover it up? Ha ha ha. Things are getting more and more interesting. Yes, it was indeed interesting. Not only did Zhang Zhihao have such thoughts, but Zhang Qingxiao, who was far away in the Lian country, also had such thoughts. At this time, Zhang Qingxiao was sitting on a hill. The hill was neither tall nor big, only a few feet high and several feet wide. Above the hill, the bright scenic bell emitted an orange-yellow brilliance that covered Zhang Qingxiao and a jade table. On top of the jade table, there was a strange wine bottle and several jade cups. The light red wine in the jade cups emitted a clear wine fragrance that filled the entire light barrier. Zhang Qingxiao lazily sat on the white blanket, his left hand holding a jade cup. Just as the cup left his mouth, those slightly squinted eyes, the smiling corners of his mouth, and the slight tapping of the index and middle fingers of his right hand on the jade table, all of them showed that he was enjoying himself. This small mound was just one of the many yellow hills of varying sizes in this boundless wasteland. Zhang Qingxiao didn't know how many similar mounds there were in front of her, but she didn't know how many of them there were behind her. Xiaohua, this guy, what is he doing? He actually killed the Imperial Thunder Sect's Marshal Kuan? Zhang Qingxiao naturally received Zhang Zhihao's secret report. The corner of his mouth faintly flickered with mockery. This guy even said that I was vicious and merciless. What about himself? He didn't even put his own master in his eyes and easily killed them. Is this the attitude of a junior? Moreover, this is a great battle of Dao cultivators. Your hands are itchy. Can't you kill a few more sword cultivators? Even if Marshal Kuan wants to curry favor with Daoist Jingru and has some thoughts about you. But, could it be that Marshal Kuan has already made his move? Zhang Qingxiao suddenly came to a realization. Damn, this little junior brother of mine is really amazing. Marshal Kuan is a golden core cultivator, and he already made his move. Didn't this guy, Xiao Hua, just build his foundation? He can actually escape from a golden core cultivator's palm? Not simple. If it wasn't for Xiao Hua, that whatever stick, even I wouldn't have guessed that Marshal Kuan was actually Xiao Hua in disguise. Where did Xiao Hua's disguise technique come from? He's actually much more powerful than I am. It seems like my little junior brother's background isn't simple. Fortunately, this is my little junior brother. If he was my enemy, let alone an enemy, with such a person on Xiaoyu continent, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Fortunately. Also, what does our Vice Alliance leader Luo want to do? He actually has dealings with people of my demon sect. My heavenly demon sect's vice sect leader, Yinming, seems to be under the Vice Alliance leader. Or maybe he's here to contact Vice Alliance leader Luo. Vice sect leader Yin has been very busy recently. Unfortunately, his grand cosmos shifting token has always been in my little junior brother's storage bag. This guy can't catch up to Xiao Hua's fleeing footsteps no matter how hard he tries. Should I tell him that Xiao Hua went to the sword tomb? Or maybe Xiong Huasong will tell him without me informing him. Not necessarily. Zhang Qingxiao shook her head again. I'm afraid Xiong Huasong doesn't know about Yinming, right? Xiong Huasong can only tell Zhang Zhihao about Xiao Hua, but he can't directly inform Yinming. But that's not right. According to Xiao Hua, he obtained this grand cosmos shifting token at the Feather Immortal Assembly. This thing should have been sent to the Changbai sect for Daoist Jingyu, right? This Xianghua Song is a cultivator of the profound sky sect. So how did he know that the grand cosmos shifting token is with Xiaohua? Humph. It must have been a disciple of the profound sky sect who handed this thing to the unlucky Fan Tong at the Feather Immortal Assembly. Lu Weigang has already said this. Taoist Jing Yu is extremely protective, so he will definitely avenge Fan Tong. Looks like my little junior brother situation is not good. Since Zhang Zhihao noticed Xiaohua, that old Vice Alliance leader Luo naturally also saw Xiaohua. Taoist Jing Yu is about to head to the Sky Patrol City. Little junior brother is surrounded by enemies. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.